week of the legislative session, third of 7 weeks. Um, a lot of the first week has been taken up with this SB 18, which is a bill designed to give a property tax cut. It deals with a cut in tangible property, not real property, but tangible property, and the taxes that people pay on that currently. If you have, if it's $15,000 or less, your tangible property, you don't owe taxes on it. They wanted to raise that to $50,000, which Leon is here, but it was about $450,000 for us. Is that right, Leon? We were successful in getting that bill held in committee. We certainly weren't the only ones working on it. The counties were as upset about it as we are. And we have, and by we, I mean the counties and the school districts have negotiated with the bill sponsor. Let me just back up for a second. I had a meeting with President Adams about a number of different issues. He brought this issue up as one of his priorities. And so I realized at that point that some version of this bill was going to pass, and that it wasn't going to be able to just be able to kill it, which I originally hoped to see it to do when I originally saw the bill. But the bill that the compromise that has been negotiated is that they would raise the minimum from 15 to 25, and then the taxes that are paid between $15,000 or between $25,000 and $50,000 would be a cut to us, but the rest of it would still, after that amount, it would still continue to float. And so I haven't seen numbers. I don't know if you've seen numbers, Leon. The counties in the conversation that I was a part of with Representative Harper, the counties had figured out what their amount cut would be. And they were talking about, where they had been taking hundreds of $1,000 cut, that they were talking about tens of thousands. And so I don't know where we would end up in that scenario, but we're not locked into anything. But that is the current state of that bill, and that has been the hot item here in the first couple of weeks. Is there any questions on that, Mont? You're not going to ask me to define tangible property, I hope.
I was just trying to think of what tangible personal property would be for an individual. I understand what that is for a business, but
well, I misstated that. Just it's tangible property, not tangible personal property.
well, anyway, tangible property that I'm just trying to think of what that would be.
Yeah, we don't.
That's all business.
It's all business tax. And if I said personal property, I misstated it. It is just a business tax.
Okay, it's just tangible property for business, not individuals.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if anybody asked me what tangible property was, I was going to refer them to you, but because my definition is anything you can touch is tangible.
Well, for a business, that would be office furniture. That would be, that type of stuff.
That's what I've been going on. Any other questions about that?
So they're not changing the system of who pays and what they pay for. They're just changing the threshold or the deductible amount.
Right.
Until they pay a tax.
Right. Before this bill, it was $15,000. If you had $15,000 or less, you didn't owe the tax. And if the bill passes the way they're currently talking about it, that number will move to 25,000. Right. And this has been something that has been advocated by the National Federation of Independent Business. They've been involved in negotiations. It's something they care a lot about. And
how long has it been?
It's not our job to look out for the National Federation of Independent Business, but they do make up a lot of our taxpayers in our district.
Charlie, how long has it been at 15,000? It seems to me like that's been there for a very, very long time.
That question was asked in the committee and nobody had a definitive answer, but everybody seemed to think that it was there, that was the original threshold that was put in.
Because I don't remember anything but 15 filling out property tax statements for businesses for, clear back to when I started as an accountant.
Right. And it is, these businesses say that it is a very hard tax for them to calculate, because, you don't know how much a desk is worth, for instance. And so if it's something that we're all comfortable with, I think everybody gets a win.
It's probably a very, very low inflationary increase on that.
Yeah.
So.
And, when with it originally with the rate not floating, it was going to be all the way across, it was going to be a much bigger hit to us. But I think that this, limits the amount of the hit to us in a year that we're going to be, they've already got 6% the WPU and the base budget. And so we're going to have a good year financially. And if this is, wouldn't say de minimis, but if this is as small as they say it is, that perhaps it is something that you would want to consider being okay with. Is there anything else we need to? Why don't you go ahead?
So another one I know several of you have paid attention to is SB1, which is the base budget bill, which is not usually something everybody pays a lot of attention to, but have this year. It is where the employee bonuses come in for our school-based employees. It's also, our base budget that sets the 6% WP, which is all great news. And then at the last minute, they stuck in some limitations to how federal funds can be spent, and that kind of got people in a kerfluffle. But we've talked about it at length. We're okay with it. We appreciate what they've done. We appreciate the funding that they have provided for us for this next coming year. And appreciate them working to get back to that in this odd year. So there may be still some changes. That bill is passed and is secured. We hear from the state office, there may be some changes still coming to the parameters they set, but we'll wait and keep you updated on that as we go.
And so that bill, one of the things that Susan and I have been working on with that bill is to expand those bonuses to include as many people as we can. That bill can be modified in what's referred to as the bill of bills at the end of the session. And so what's currently there is obviously a minimum and probably will end up being what we get, but it is possible that it could expand. And I'm speaking now, the bonuses, it could be expanded in the bill of bills, which would pass probably on the last day or the second to last day of the session.
We did have a lot of conversations about building principals. As I know you all had a great concern about the building principals and assistant principals. They are included in that in writing. So that's included. And so we've got about as far as we can go right now, unless they find some additional money to include.
And so now they've started this week to work on the 21-22 fiscal year budget. So that's what we've been doing this week and what we will be doing for the next 10 days or so. Any other questions for us?
Any other questions? No, thank you for that update. And I think everyone has access to the tracker, and we appreciate that daily update as well. And just a reminder, if the public would like to receive that, they can subscribe by going to the website.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your great work. Okay, next item, graduation plans for 2021. Dr. Robert Dowdle, Assistant Superintendent. And I will say it's kind of hard to believe we're having this discussion. It does, yes, hasn't. Thank you.
Oh, it helps if you turn the mic on, especially when you got a mask. It seems odd, just a little less than a year ago, we were talking about graduation, and I know a lot of our communities had a lot of reservation and anxieties about what this was going to look like in a spring COVID year of 2020. And being the father of a senior, of a graduate of last year, and being the principal as well, it really, made us kind of think outside the box in terms of what we could do to make it special for our students. And I think reflecting back on that, we had a lot of positive feedback that came out of the celebrations that we did. So I'm just going to highlight 3 major events that Alta does in conjunction with graduation. The first of those is a senior principals awards night that I've done for the 7 years that I've been at Alta. Yeah, and it's an opportunity to do a recognition for all of our students that have high tier academic accolades. We do GPA 4.0 or 3.9 students. We recognize our SBOs, our Sterling Scholars, those participants in the Step to the U program, students that complete the Hawk Medallion Award, which is based on contributions back to Alta High School and the service that they provide. And then we also recognize our Resilient Hawks. And I know Amanda's had the opportunity to come see that particular presentation, and it's a very powerful, very moving part of the evening. And so we're going to look to still host this as far as the magnitude of what that's going to look like. Obviously, COVID interdependent, but last year what we did is we put together a digital virtual production. This year, utilizing our Performing Arts Center and not exceeding the 25% capacity. I'm in the process right now of evaluating just how many students that we have to recognize and seeing if we can get away with doing 2 tickets for parents so that they could come be a part of that evening. It's a really special night for the kids and parents. So we're doing everything in our power to be able to make that happen. We'll probably live stream it as well for grandparents, aunts and uncles and siblings that are unable to make it. And that's scheduled for May 10th. Last year, we also did a virtual commencement. So from start to finish, in fact, it's still on YouTube right now. It looks like basically a formal graduation from start to finish. We recorded all the speeches. We had students come across the stage in the new pack. Parents were able to enter in and take pictures as well. They got a picture with their principal as they exited out. And we're looking to do something similar for that again this year. The difference being, again, looking at that 25% capacity, I had some conversations with my admin team this morning of potentially doing 2 sessions and bringing half the seniors in for one and half the seniors in for the other, so they can actually, again, be a part of that commencement ceremony and listen to their peers give speeches. We just thought that would be very powerful and very meaningful for our kids to be able to participate in something like that. So that's something that we're taking a look at. And again, we will do virtual production of that. So at any given time, anybody can access and reference that in the here and now, as well as 10 years down the line, if they want to pull it up. And then our graduation day, scheduled for May 26th. Last year we did a drive-through parade. And again, not really knowing how this is going to get pulled off. I know Steve and Chad that was here last year came to our graduation, Dr. Daddle as well. And the most interesting thing that I came to find from that was, as the kids and parents drove through the lot, we had all of our faculty and staff that lined an S curve. And it was very intimate in terms of the interactions between the staff, the kids, the parents, which is something you don't get in a traditional graduation ceremony. I mean, we're generally like ants on a stage, right? So for me, and I think for the kids and parents, it was nice to actually be able to make that connection. And I'm not kidding, about every 3 or 4 cars that came through, the parents would yell out their window, "Hey, McGill, can we do this every year?" And I just look back at Steve and Chad and be like, yeah, perhaps. Well, we'll see what we can do with that. But we had a lot of positive feedback. And I think the kids and parents really took ownership of it. Some of the kids, rented limos and Hummers, and a lot of the kids and parents, dressed their cars up, made it a really fun event. And we made stops along the way so the kids could do pictures with the class of 2020 banner. So we would look to do something similar there. Also the Alta Hawks logo, the big A, and then they came onto the stage with me and we did an elbow bump picture, which was showcased in, I think, the Tribune and the D News. So we had a lot of fun with it. I got a lot of positive feedback. So if things don't change between now and May, as far as lessening of restrictions with COVID, we will look to do something probably very similar to what we did last year. So, and it was a hit. And I've brought this before my community council, got that down at the bottom of the document. So we just met last Monday and they were on board with it. Some of my community council members actually had seniors that graduated last year. And so they're familiar with what we did. So any questions you guys have at all that I can help answer?
Mr. Wrigley.
Yeah, I've got a question that's related. We didn't ask you guys, but it's interesting. I mean, last year I went into a restaurant and somebody said, "You stole my senior prom night." Well, not personally, but anyway, I mean, is there any things you guys are looking for? Because we didn't do it last year and the parents did it for us.
Right.
I'm wondering if we were to look for some other option that might be safer.
Yeah,
for
so-
both of us this year.
Yeah, one of the advantages with the new renovation in Alta is we have a beautiful courtyard with lighting at night. I would love to be able to showcase that and have the kids have something out there. So again, when you got 500 seniors, not sure what that looks like in terms of, outside and distancing and masks and all that. But certainly I think it would be important to try to do something for these seniors. Obviously within the context of what we're able to do with restrictions and that, but I think that would be really important to conclude the school year for these seniors to have some kind of a moment like that. So that's one of the things we're talking about is maybe doing something outside for the kids.
That might be something to take a look at and talk with the health department, what be option, but
Yeah.
it didn't work out well last year. And we said, we're not going to do it. They
Right.
did it anyway and
Right.
probably had more problems.
Well, and even in trying to reschedule for fall with that class, again, my daughter was a part of that class. We ran into challenges there too with COVID. So any other questions?
Yeah, Mrs. Oaks.
Thank you so much. And I do want to give a shout out to those drive-through graduations. The one I attended for Corner Canyons was a party. It was awesome. And I'm kind of laughing now because I remember what a controversial subject this was last year. I would say the Alta community emailed me more than anyone about how they felt like their kids' graduation was being stolen from them. And then as soon as you had your graduation, it was radio silence. Like people were so pleased. And actually, I had a lot of people approach me and thank me for how well it went. I'm just curious. Last year, I brought this up. And when I saw Wendy Dawes' suggestion that they might consider having something out on the football field, I love that idea because of what Air Force Academy did last year. I mentioned this last year. I'm curious whether or not the SEC discussed that at all as a possibility, what your thoughts were.
We didn't discuss it as a possibility, but certainly that's something that we could look into doing, and obviously, weather interdependent as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously between now and end of May, like I said, there could be lessening of restrictions, maybe,
Right.
maybe not. And dependent upon what we could do there, we could probably have 2 sets of parents and the graduates and still meet the 25% capacity out of the stadium. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly dialogue I think we can have between now and then. If we're under a more restrictive environment, probably doing what we did last year. If we lessen some of those restrictions, certainly looking at things like having something in the stadium would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I don't want to dissuade you from doing what your community wants. I mean, if at the end of the day, they say, we love the drive-through graduation. Awesome. I'm just saying if that really is an option for us to consider and they're excited about it, then
Yeah.
I would be supportive of that.
Thank you.
You bet. Next time I'll bring my COVID crystal ball and we can have some clear answers.
Yeah,
So,
I think we could all benefit from
Right?
that.
thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello. So really similar to what Dr. McGill said, we would plan on holding our senior awards night as always. I'm confident we can do that and stay under the county's guidelines. Our graduation, I'd like to propose we do almost exactly what we did last year. A lot of our constraints are facility related, like Dr. Dowdle discussed, but also our own facility is still in a bit of a pickle. And the way we ran it last year across the street at the soccer fields worked out, at the Brighton High soccer fields worked out fantastic. A couple of board members were able to attend and I thought it went very well. A lot of positive reception from the community. I felt like each student was allowed, the individual attention that the parents wanted. And honestly haven't had one piece of negative feedback about the graduation from last year. The teachers enjoyed it better. That even though they were sitting out in the sun, they said it was so great to have a personal interaction with the kids. Some of them hadn't had them since they were freshmen and sophomores, and the kids remembered their names and waved, and it was a meaningful experience to everybody that was involved. So I don't want to go through my plan here, but it was great. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. To speak to the other question, at our principals meeting last week, maybe still on her thunder a bit here, but Wendy suggested that we look at maybe doing a test to dance kind of senior prom. And all of us agreed that that would be a great idea. And we'd like to propose it to the board and Dr. Robbins that I think that's a great option for our kids. I also presented our graduation plans to our SCC, and they said, we're fantastic if you do that graduation. We really want some type of social closure for our kids, whether that's on the football field or in the field house or somewhere. Whatever you can do to make that social closure happen would be amazing, because that's what they felt they were missing. And so if there's any way we can do that with the test to stay type of environment, we'd really appreciate that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions?
Oh, I thought, Amber, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, I just fully support whatever you want to do. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And also what the community wants.
Yeah.
So
We did discuss it at SCC last month, and they loved it. We to Amanda's question, we didn't discuss the football field option. I think it's viable. I don't think they'd like it as much, though. I think they loved what we did. They didn't have to hear me talk. I'm not going to say anything about you guys' speeches. They're amazing. But we will do the virtual thing that Dr. McGill discussed. We have the kids speak, and we send it home, and the board members are welcome to add their remarks on there, and it works out very well. And the kids watch it at their leisure or not. So thank you.
Thank you. And I did participate. I recorded that speech last year. So, and it was a good experience, and was also able to attend the drive-through and concur that it was very well received and very well done. Thank you. Principal Jensen.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having us here, and actually, thank you for all you do for our students and faculty at this time. So we really appreciate it. And I'm just kind of stick to the theme. I mean, we had a drive-through celebration last year as well, and I don't think I've ever received so much positive feedback in 25 years of education. And I think our post-graduation survey actually is pretty relevant in this situation as well, where they took the time to let us know that they thought it was amazing, it was fun, and the families got to spend the day with their graduates and celebrate. So we're looking at doing the very same thing, kind of staging up at Willow Springs and coming down 7th and going through the horseshoe like we did last year. We have touched on the football field a little bit. Our issue is our graduating class is pushing 600, and we were only selling about 900 or so tickets for football. So that doesn't even give them 2 tickets per graduate, plus the 700 that would be on the field. So if the regulations change or lift a little bit, we would consider that at that time, but it would just limit households participating in graduation. So anyway, we're looking to do the same thing. If you have any questions.
I thought it was amazing, the level of organization at the Corner Canyon graduation and how we had it start at Willow Springs. And I heard the exact same feedback, just how excited people were that was an option for them to still be able to celebrate and decorate their cars. And I thought that was just a great event. I also just wanted to echo, I think that's a great idea, the test for a dance and some social gathering for the kids. I think as much as we can do for these kids to celebrate them and help them have a little more normal traditions coming back, I think that's just great. So thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I should probably give a shout out to Draper City. They were very accommodating and helped us out as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Principal Levitt. Oh, nope, Principal Becker. Yeah, we do know our alphabet around
On the
here.
alphabet. Hi, everybody. I just want to say the same thing my colleagues have said. We actually did a drive-through. Ours was actually a drive-up. It was a little more like a drive-in theater where we had one car per graduate and they put as many family and friends in. We were asking them to please appropriately socially distance. But we filled up the parking lot. We had a stage. We presented live speakers and some recorded speakers. Board member Wrigley was there. Dr. Dowder was there. Dr. Briscoe was there. And families absolutely loved it. And so after the presentations, the cars would drive up, student would walk across, get their diploma. And I have to say the same thing as all my colleagues are saying. We talked about personalized learning. This was literally personalized graduation, and it was amazing. And the last thing I want to say about what made it so great for us is we never, and I'll represent Entrada as well, neither 11 years of Entrada graduations and 5 years of Diamond Ridge, we've never graduated on our own school campus. And that was just so incredibly meaningful to students and families. They're just more emotion and more tears than I've ever seen in a graduation. So we meet next Tuesday as a school community council, but informally speaking with members, everyone said, well, we just want to do this always, not just COVID. And so we obviously have a great deal of support. So any questions that you all have, I'd love to entertain.
Mr. Milleberg.
Oh, sorry. What?
Amy, not so much a question, but maybe just a comment.
Yes.
I stood there that morning and was there as well.
Yes.
And maybe it's because that was the first drive-by graduation I'd attended, but there was just something that was absolutely unbelievable about that graduation ceremony that you had.
Yes.
So well done,
Thank you.
so well choreographed, and the kids, the parents, the families were just having a ball.
Just joyful.
So if you can duplicate it this year,
Yes, we're hoping we can.
go for it.
Yes, and we don't do a separate thing for seniors at this point because we're still so small with about 50 grads.
Mhm.
But I think because 100% of our grads weren't really destined to graduate, and here they are graduating, that it just is such a great celebration. So thank you.
And maybe my memory has faded a little bit,
Yes.
but it seems to me that from the beginning
Mhm.
to the end was under an hour and a half.
It was an hour and a half.
And so,
It was-
so well executed.
Thank you so much. And it was just a joy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, well, Principal Levitt's coming up. I was able to attend the Entrada celebration, and it was very well done and such a special event.
And any letters before the letter H now?
Well, I'm glad there's a lot of levity in the room. Hello, board members. Hillcrest was trying to go big again, but we got denied by state risk. We were going to, because it's our last hurrah for our auditorium. It's going to be torn down mid-June. We were going to take the doors off and drive cars through right onto the stage, and we were going to make it big, but state risk thought there would be some issues with carbon monoxide. I don't think there would, but anyway, they denied us. So we're going to try to do the next best thing. You have our plan there. We feel like it's appropriate with the largest, one of the largest auditoriums in the state. We can easily put 200 to 300 people, keeping that 25% capacity at a time, and walk kids through and have them have an opportunity walking through that. We'll have ushers, so they won't, so they'll know where to sit. People won't have to shift from seat to seat. We'll just do the name calling, and it'll go pretty quick. We feel like we can do it in about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. They'll walk through, traditionally pick up their diplomas afterwards, and get rid of their caps and gowns, that kind of thing. But I did present that to my community council. They felt like it was a good plan, and they're on board. We haven't really extended the plan further than that. Obviously, we'd like your approval and thoughts on it. we feel like, again, that the capacity of our auditorium is in such that it is unique that way, that we can make this work and celebrate our seniors that way. As to the proposal of senior dances and that, I think all high schools look forward to having some direction from the board and the district leadership on being able to do test and stay. Most of our high schools right now are testing over 40% of our students anyway. And just so you know, those tests are, very, very often we'll have one positive, but most of them, 99% of them are negative, and they're doing great. So we'd love that opportunity to explore that. Any questions for Hillcrest? Okay.
I'm glad you included that you ran that past your school community council. I love to see when the school community council is utilized the way it's meant to be and get that tap from the community. And I just have to say, I don't know if you remember, but when you first opened Draper Park Middle School, I was on your school community council.
Oh, that's right.
Several years ago.
Sorry.
So it's
Welcome
fun
to
to
the board.
see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that sounds like a great plan, and glad that you talked to them about it.
Thank you.
Any other
Greg,
questions?
before you go,
Mr. Milberg?
Greg, I'm not going to let you out of here without at least a little bit of levity, okay?
All right.
Pun intended. on that.
Anything for you, Mont?
First of all, congratulations on the award you received. School of Distinction. Excellent. School of Excellence. Congratulations on that. That is something that does not come easy. And it shows great leadership on your part to have achieved that. Moving on to graduation, I, for one, really do like the idea of something over the top, like a drive-through graduation. And I would guess if you put some fans somewhere, some large fans to move air, bringing fresh air in from the outside and pushing it out the other side, that could happen. And I like it. I'm not willing to just roll over and say no.
Well, I think it's very reasonable. Carl Patterson, for the record, our construction consultant, did feel like it was a viable plan. I also believe it is, but I'm too busy to argue a stake risk over it, and we got plenty to do. So if some people with big wigs can call state risk and help me with that, that would be appreciated if that's something you would be interested in.
Well, and congratulations also on moving your school ahead and having on-site construction going on. And I, for one, am excited to see what happens next fall with the new school.
Thank you.
So congratulations and thank you for the excellent work you do.
Thank you. Again, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Principal Dow.
So my colleagues kind of tease me a little bit because they always say I'm making things more complicated, which I clearly did because I have 3 options. And so what I did was, in talking with school community council as well as PTSA, there was kind of a split as to whether or not we wanted to do a graduation on the football field or whether we wanted to do a drive-through. We felt like our drive-through was really a great celebration last year. But in talking with student government, they feel like they have been very deprived of doing anything together as a class. And they're really right in that. So I knew you would ask me if I had surveyed my students. And so I did. And of my seniors, overwhelmingly, they want something on the football field. And the interesting part about this is I did only have 271 kids respond, but 116 wanted it on the one night, everybody together, 2 tickets per family. That would keep us at the 25% because I only have 400 seniors. 102, so that's not 102 students want it on 2 nights so they could have 4 tickets. And then only 58 students wanted the drive-through. So now what I'm going to do is put together a survey of the 2, do you want it on 2 nights or do you want it on 1 night? And we'll present that to school community council on Thursday. My school community council is super supportive at Jordan High School. I'm really lucky to have the parents that I do serve on that organization. And they really just want to do what the kids want. That was the bottom line as I got text messages and things from them. So I know they'll be excited to hear that. And really the purpose of the 2 nights came as a result of a great conversation with my administrative team, which really has an equity mindset in how they look at things. And they were very concerned about the 2-ticket option because they felt like if there were families where you have, divorced, parents and things like that, it could really put a kid in a difficult situation trying to figure out how that's all going to work. And so, so I appreciated that they're willing to go through the extra work to have it across 2 nights if that's what we choose to do. So we're still deciding, and we're going to gather more information and then go from there. But what questions can I answer for you?
Questions, Mr. Wrigley?
So I did put in a request for 1 night of good weather, but I don't know if we can get 2
I
straight.
know 2 is the trick. So we're going to hope so. But we'll watch the weather. I mean, obviously, if that were to happen, we could move it all to 1 night if we needed to. I mean, we know we've done it on the football field, before, and we've had to be flexible about different things that happen as a result of an outside graduation. We're prepared for that. So, okay.
Thank you. All right. Principal Knopfsinger from Jordan Valley.
Oh, yes.
Wearing her gecko mask.
Yes, we got these for our staff new this year, and my chameleon brooch here that was gifted to me as well. We're truly embodying our new logo. As I sat back and listened to my colleagues, it was interesting to me to hear, how many seniors they have, 400, 500, pushing 600. Last year we had 8 out of, only having 100 students. And what we had done last year, because 4 of our 8 are medically fragile, our parents had requested no ceremony, not even a drive-through. And so we went to their homes and just gave them some great senior swag, fun things, and just recognized them that way. That being said, they were interested in the future, if restrictions were lifted, could we have a ceremony? And it's more so for our parents than for our students. Our students may not fully understand the purpose of that ceremony or the fact that they're no longer returning to Jordan Valley. They're home away from home, so to speak. But we have been, and this year, we only have 3 students that are moving on. But we have been reaching out more to our parents of the graduates recently, trying to offer them the options and find out what it is that they would like. Because 4 of those kids, sadly enough, only 3 of them are currently living. And so to be able to honor the life of that student and still have that opportunity for that family to recognize his accomplishments is a huge deal. But it's also it's just such a big accomplishment for our kids because they're 22 finishing school. And it's a big deal even for our staff because they're just extended family members. And so our hope this year is that we would be able to use one of our middle school auditoriums because we can have, even if we have last year's group join us, we're looking at 10 families that could very easily physically distance around one of our auditoriums and still be able to have it be just household family and still have masks and still to keep our students safe who can't tolerate masks. And so to look at that. So far, our parents are in favor of just combining the 2 years and being able to celebrate them. And they appreciated that we could just use one of our own district facilities because we could fit. And then that allows the comfort if it's a really hot day, our students with those medical needs won't affect them. And we can still, like I said, celebrate their accomplishments and be able to have closure to their schooling and closure for their parents. They're already in denial that this is like that year. So that for us is, and our program only ends up being about an hour. That's about as long as our kids can really handle and focus before things get a little fun. So that's what we're proposing and still kind of gathering from parents as well. But that's what it sounds like we're leaning towards.
Great. Any comments or Mr. Millerberg?
Stacy, I love the chameleon. I think it's great. And I will tell you that of all the assignments I have ever had as a member of the Board of Education, speaking at the transition ceremony at Jordan Valley is probably one of the most difficult things I've been asked to do. And at the same time is the most rewarding thing that I've done on the board. I love your school, and I think it's great that you're reaching out to last year's graduates. I missed not being able to be there last year. I've been there several times. And President, I will go on record now requesting to be at Jordan Valley. So love your school and I love what you do. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
I'm quite partial to it as well. If you remembered, I couldn't even get through the logo presentation without a tear. So I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve, but that's okay. That's what our students do to us there. So it's all good.
Great.
Anything else?
Other comments? Mrs. Oaks?
Thank you so much. I just want to give a shout out to all of the high school principals here in the room. I don't think since COVID has started, or at least not since the school year has started, that we've had you all in the same room together where we could tell you how much we deeply and profoundly appreciate the unbelievable work you've gone to this year. I don't think there's any way to ever quantify it. Just know from the bottom of our hearts, we recognize so much of what you've done and are grateful. There's not enough thanks that we can even express, but thank you.
Thank you. And I think as you were saying that, a lot of heads were nodding up here. So we appreciate you all very much. And I would just have one request that as you move forward and start finalizing your plans, that you let us as a board know how we can help and participate in these events. And that maybe, working through Dr. Dowdle, we can have a conversation in an upcoming board meeting to look at some of those assignments. And I think Mont's already staked claim on one of them, so.
I would also make the statement that other board members, as you go through your period of time on the Board of Education, make sure at some point in time you attend the transition ceremony at Jordan Valley. That is an invitation, and I hope you take me up on that, because that is very, very much worth your time to go and be a part of that.
And I will second that invitation, and yes, it is a very, very wonderful experience. Mrs. Oaks?
I feel the same way about the graduation ceremony at the prison, which I'm guessing we probably don't have that opportunity this year because of the COVID restrictions, but that was an incredible experience to see how excited those inmates were to be able to make that kind of progress in their life. That was transformative. So.
Yes, Principal Lovett?
As we plan on these possible celebrations, do we look for formal board approval, or do we feel like that comes from how does that work as we have to get contracts with places or, things like that? Like senior dinner dance and those kinds of things.
I think traditionally that's been handled by the schools and the administration and not been a board thing. And I think the board would just request that any plans adhere to the guidelines given by the state and the county and right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, Mrs. Schill.
I just want to add my thanks because each one of you principals that are here have been like the tip of the spear, and you've been in the most difficult situations. And just know that we do support you and we appreciate you so much. And we realize you guys all need some mental health days, I think, at the end of this. But I just wanted to add my thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next item is item C, Student Health and Risk Prevention, Sharp Survey Presentation. And Mr. BJ Weller is excused this evening, and Superintendent Robbins will give us the presentation.
Thank you, President. That's kind of a hard act to follow with Sharp Survey. Before we go on to just a couple of things, I want to express my appreciation to our high school principals. Having been in their role for many years, it's just been awesome to see their work this year. And as you mentioned, you know, with all the challenges that we've had, here we are, we're still in person, in school. And, you know, I see their work and all the efforts that they make to take care of our kids. It's really, unless you've been in that job, understand that, quite frankly, a high school principal is much more of a lightning rod and a lighthouse even than the superintendent in many ways. And I certainly respect that. And I just want these guys to know how much I appreciate them. And speaking of the spring, I too am very supportive of moving forward with trying to do something along the lines of some type of social closing. And today in our early morning county health meeting, actually that topic came up and it was introduced as test to sway. So, remember that test to sway is coming. And I actually think the principles that we've applied to test to stay and test to play have been very, very effective in Canyon School District. As you know, we've had high participation rate. I'm very grateful to our parents and our community for supporting that. I know people have their own opinions about it, but at the end of the day, I think our principals have executed an excellent plan, and it has bought at least, you know, you kind of play that out, at least a month to a month and a half of extra time for in-person instruction. So the idea actually to apply those principles to some type of closing social, I think could occur. So I think that's worth sharing. I too want to just say thank you and recognize BJ. I hope he's okay with me sharing that he's not able to be here tonight, and he's recovering from a serious accident and injuries. There's not a greater warrior for our kids in Canyon School District than BJ Weller. And if he could be here, he would. I know that. And he's probably stressed out as I speak that he's not here. But I think all of you know the kind of effort that he puts into his passion and his job and his work. And, you know, he was injured while serving others in the district. And so, you know, we wouldn't be here with the success that we've had this year without BJ. So I just want him to know that we're thinking about him and wishing him a speedy recovery. Okay, on to Sharp Survey. This is a prevention needs assessment. As you know, it's actually been around. I don't know if I can get the clicker to work. It's been around the state of Utah for 20 plus years. And it's been in canyons, I believe, my understanding is since the time canyons opened. What do we got here, Leon? Can you just switch it on? There's not that many slides, so even if you can. So this is a collaborative effort in the state of Utah, Department of Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health. There you go. Is it working? We're good. Okay, perfect. State Board of Education, Department of Health, and the designer of the survey is Bach Harrison. Just so as you hand it to me now, it's not working. Oh, there we go. You got it? Okay, is that the next slide? Okay, perfect. So as mentioned, this is a prevention needs assessment. It's administered every other year in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. As mentioned in my earlier correspondence with the board, this year is a pilot year for the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, the YRBS. And that has an antisocial behavior component to it. And so this year, it'll be administered only in the high schools. It's not administered in grades 6 through 8, only 9 through 12. So if a class is selected randomly for the YRBS, then that would take the place of the prevention needs assessment, or the PNA that would normally be administered. Also, just along those lines, I think this is also in another slide, but just to clarify, this is an opt-in assessment. So parents have a choice to have their student participate in that. And we would clearly make that transparent to our parents in communication. Our parents would also have access, and I'll give that assurance right now publicly, that they will have access to the assessments prior to making a decision about participation. So you can see that includes public, charter, and private schools may participate. It measures those things that are mentioned there: mental health, suicide, gang involvement, academic issues, health, fitness, and other prevention topics. So what comes from that data? And many mental health partners, along with the school districts, utilize this data to help inform them about the risk factors that exist with our young people, as well as protective factors, right? So we're trying to understand our students' behaviors, as well as looking at ways that we can insert protective factors that will help keep them safe. And I failed to mention too, the survey's anonymous. It's paper pencil, so it's not tracked electronically to an IP address as well. So there's no way that anyone would know who the student is that answers the survey. But from this data, the outcome data that comes from the survey, you can see there all of the risk factors that can be identified then to be utilized in developing intervention strategies and supports. And some of those are more direct and indirect. If you look at as far as the school setting, all the way down to a granular level, I believe, from what I've been told, our school community councils have access to their school SHARP survey data at the district level, and on a public outward facing platform. The data is aggregate and by county, not by district or school only, but the school itself is able to utilize that data at that level to drive some of their own intervention plans. So you can see how that data is broken down right there on that slide. Okay, next. So a few of the ways that the grant, these are grants that are funded through a SHARP survey. Over the years, my understanding has always been, and experience has been, that the bulk of the funding that comes from the data, which, by the way, over how I've seen this play out over the years, and the way I understand how this works and has worked, is that data flows through the superintendent. So how the superintendent in X district determines to distribute the data, it would come through my office. But you can see for many of our partnering agencies, this data is utilized heavy to drive much of their funding in their own intervention plans. And those can be provided in direct services in some ways to our students, or it may be indirect as well. One of the things that I wanted to make note specifically to the district, and Leon's been great at helping me try to understand how that funding flows. The GAIN grant itself, probably of all of the funding mechanisms, has the most direct impact with the district. We received $417,877 last year on the GAIN grant. And then also directly from SHARP survey is substance abuse at $11,810 and suicide prevention at $14,928. There are other funding mechanisms that come from the state, and I believe also federal resources that likely we would receive anyway, whether or not we do the survey. Youth in custody at 510,000 and Title IV student support services at 190,488. So I guess the point there is you can see how the survey drives funding for different agencies and how important it is to them, as well as our own efforts in the district to address these risk factors. So with that, I think the next is we'll go to, after this, we'll go to questions. So I mentioned the parent permission form. This is active consent. So parents would need to sign to opt in. I think, you know, this is important. The survey's every 2 years. So I think it is possible for parents to not even experience the survey once, depending on the years that their student goes through. Their student could also experience it every 2 years and hit it, you know, each time that the survey is administered. But I think, you know, one of the things that we can really emphasize is just this transparency, right? That we can provide a link not only to the survey questions, but also we can ensure that parents have full disclosure before they sign consent for their students to take the survey. Okay. Questions?
Mrs. Neubauer.
Thank you so much. So the SHARP survey is something I've really been looking into for the past year. As a school community council, we went through the survey questions and looked at our data. Of course, it was all anonymous. I understand how the grants work and the funding and how it's linked and how important it is for us to receive this data and how the mental health of our students is so important for us to look at how we can help and try to do as much preventative as possible. I had a great conversation with BJ. We had a great synergy kind of going on, brainstorming some different ideas. I'm going to begin by reading a few questions from the survey that I was concerned about. My largest concern with the survey is it asks children. And to back up, as far as the site, it was 2009 is the first time we had data. So I'm not it's my understanding it's been happening for 10 years. In the past, it's only been certain students that we've just randomly selected, and how the parents are notified is by mail. So they get the letter in the mail and it says, would you like, and it kind of explains, we have a copy of the letter here. This is the first year that there's actually been an opportunity to get an electronic copy of the survey. In the past, it just has said, parents, if you're interested in looking at the survey, you can contact the school and then get a copy of that. So my first primary concern was how many parents, you know, with a brief description of what's going on here, because it actually, there's so much data that we get from this, including, you know, if kids are participating in alcohol or drugs or vaping, as well as suicidal ideation. And so it's a very brief summary. And I don't know that if you just read that, you totally know what it entails. And also, I don't know how many parents are going to take the time to contact to see what's on the survey. BJ and I had a discussion about how you have to be careful because you don't want to risk the integrity of the survey by having children view it before they take the test, right? The first time they see it is when they're going to give the most honest response. However, I do think it's important that we look at this from a team approach and make sure that parents are totally aware of the questions that are being asked so that they can have conversations with their kids. So I'm going to read a few of the questions that I was concerned about. In the beginning, it's pretty benign, but then it gets stronger. So first, sometimes I think that life is not worth it. At times, I think I am no good at all. All in all, I am inclined to think that I am a failure. Then it goes on to say, later on in the survey, during the past 12 months, did you ever seriously consider attempting suicide? During the past 12 months, did you make a plan about how you would attempt suicide? During the past 12 months, how many times, if any, did you actually attempt suicide? And then if you felt very sad, hopeless, or suicidal in the past 30 days, who did you talk to about it? In the past 12 months, have you ever done something to purposefully hurt yourself without wanting to die, such as cutting or burning yourself on purpose? If so, how many times did you do so? Obviously, those questions are very important to ask certain students. My concern is if you have a child who's never considered this and they're asked 6 or 7 times during a test, the initial response with someone who maybe has never considered this would be discomfort, right? I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel good about the questions that are being asked. And there's multiple ways that children can react that way. But obviously, I'm not a child therapist or a child psychologist, but I have talked to several. And the thing that I'm concerned about is that actually there is a chemical reaction and a dopamine reaction when you're introduced to something you've never seen before that makes you feel uncomfortable. And I'm concerned that may not consider any of these things before, may come away from that test with curiosity. And maybe the first thing they go to is the phone that's in their hand to look up about it. Maybe not that day, but maybe some other time. Some things that BJ and I talked about were first having the survey and the parent consent form emailed, not just mailed, having a sky alert. I just want the parents to have as much communication as possible. These questions are made available to you. We're going to make it easy. It's right here for you. I love that idea, because then if my child went through this test, I have the ability to talk to them about it. I know what the questions were. If they feel uncomfortable, maybe that prevents them from talking to their friends about it or going online about it. So I think that's really helpful. I also think another helpful thing would be to get some data as far as what was the child's mood before they took the test. And the reason why I keep saying child is because we begin this in 6th grade. Did you feel happy? What were your emotions before and then after the survey, just to see if some children really are feeling uncomfortable or feel a little disturbed after taking the test. I've also wondered why we couldn't, and BJ was really interested in this as well. And I don't mean to speak for him. I wish he was here, but it seemed like he was. He said, I'd love to contact the company. We have segregated data with tests all the time, academics. If the child, like the Lexile, the child is doing well and reading at a higher level, the questions get harder and harder. And I wonder if there's a way that this survey, we could do this. It begins with, how confident do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you generally happy? And then if they start answering those questions in a negative way that they are unhappy, then it could go to these questions, because we need to find out those answers. But maybe it helps us not expose kids unnecessarily, just an idea. Let's see, I had one other thought here. Oh, I think that what we want to do also, BJ was explaining how much we use this data and how helpful it can be. And I was thinking, if we have incentives for parents to also be interested in their kids taking the test, because the more people we have taking the test, the better tools we have to know, right? How many of our students are hurting? Who needs help? And so I was thinking, how great would it be if we gave the parents not only, tips for conversations to have with their kids. There's a question in here. If you were to drink alcohol, how likely do you think it would be your parents would find out? Can you talk to your parent about hard things? How great to give these, hey, if you'd like, are you interested in your student taking this test? If so, would you be interested in getting, ideas for conversations with your kids? How to reach out? What is restorative practices? What can you do as a parent to help your child feel comfortable talking to you about difficult topics? So those were some ideas that I'd be really interested in exploring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill?
So just as Holly was speaking, I was reminded about last year in the legislative session, there was a bill passed. And if we really want parents to have information, there was a bill passed that we can have parents sign off to have a questionnaire on mental health. And that way the parent actually does get the information, so they know if their kid needs help. So I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just something we want to discuss.
I think it's
having
too
this-
different, though. You're
Well,
talking
no, it's
about
not the Sharp. Yeah,
right.
it's a different
It's a
thing.
depre-
It's
that's
a totally
depression
different thing.
screener. Yeah.
Because the Sharp is anonymous, so that's not really going to help
right.
a parent. But that would help a parent, and that would also, it's also opt-in. So that's just maybe something the board wants to talk about.
Oh, okay, I could tell there's a lot of interest, so let's do Mrs. Nybauer and then Mr. Millerberg and then Mrs. Arnold. And then if we still have comments, I would like to propose that we move this item, or we kind of hit pause and come back to it after we've conducted some of our other business items.
I really appreciated that comment, Amber. And that is something also I was thinking is, how can we get this information into the hands of parents? We're trying to increase prevention, right? And helping mental health. And that's where it starts, is helping the parents. And so because this is an anonymous survey, unfortunately, as the way I understand it, it's anonymous for our district as well. These are just numbers. We can't actually go in and do any responsive services with a person or a child, because we don't get that information. So even if there was an opt-in to disclose information.
Mr. Millerberg and then Mrs. Arnold.
Yeah, I have just a couple of concerns here. And probably my first concern is, especially as you get into the kids that are on the younger end of being tested. I mean, I'm going to relate a personal experience better than a half a century ago, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. When I was in high school, I opted out of out of instruction of the school and went to a different place for release time instruction. And the teacher there was an excellent guy. We all loved him, and we would laugh about it. We called him Uncle Jerry. And we would laugh about it as we would come out of there saying, I'd never heard of that before. We ought to go try that. And we used to refer to it as sin du jour, the sin of the day. And so I think we need to be very, very careful with the survey, especially with the younger kids where there's innocence involved, that we don't put ideas in their head. I will tell you, I never thought of suicide on my own. Somebody taught me that it existed. And I just don't like that idea of pushing that out and putting it there as an option for kids. The other concern I have, where it's an opt-in survey, I will tell you that if I had a kid that was packing a gun to school, drinking and doing drugs, I would probably suggest that that child not complete the survey. And I just wonder, as you skew your sample size, what is happening to skew the results that you're coming out with? And so that's a concern I have as well.
Thank you. Mrs. Arnold.
So this was brought up by me 2 years ago. And because I had parents mail this to me and said, did you know that your students take this? And I didn't even know it existed. And they actually sent me a copy, of which then I had a conversation with a principal, and he said he didn't even know his daughter took it. And so then he went home and asked her about it. And he said she was really, really, I don't know the word I want to use, taken back, surprised, didn't know what a lot of the words meant, didn't know what a lot of the things were, and didn't even know people could do them. And so that's when I asked the board and shared with the board this packet, and we decided that we would have this awesome conversation that we're having right now, which I'm so thankful for. Because when you're in 6th grade, and I'm sorry to say, but I know people that still in 6th grade believe in Santa Claus, and then you're asking them if they have cut themselves or burned themselves this week. I don't even know if some of those kids know that they can do that or that they should do that. And on Mont's same statement, I probably was like, I don't know, Mont, it must be I don't know, a senior thing, but I bet I was probably in my 40s before I knew that people even committed suicide, that it was an option to life. I had no idea. And so I'm glad that we're teaching about it and people are getting more understanding about it. But I also am as concerned as Holly and Amber about, they read it and then they think, well, am I weird? Am I dumb? And this whole thing, all 100 and what, 11 questions, 136 questions, all on those kind of topics about liquor and alcohol and drugs, and not only once, but over and over and over again. It would be different if it was like one time, but 136 times. And then I can't even read these prescription drugs. I want you to know, I can't even read all the names of them. And yet we're going to ask a sixth grader to try to muddle through all these names of all these drugs. I probably know a few, but not, I can't even count them all up. We're probably talking at least 8 per question, what, 6 per question? And there's specifically about 10 questions about it. So now they are looking up all these drug names to see if they had them or didn't have them. They're not even going to know, probably. If the doctor gave them a prescription, they wouldn't know if it was Valium or Xanax or Soma. So my one question is, I'm sorry, I'm babbling. So I've covered innocence. I've covered teaching them things we don't really want to teach them. Is there a way that we get to choose the questions and still be able to get the funding? Or do we have to stick with their questions to be able to get the funding? Because the one you gave us is 6th grade, it's pretty mild. When you get to the 12th grade one, it's way worse. And maybe they're way more intelligent and can write them all, but still, it's pretty bad. So is there a way to have the company have our district choose the questions that we feel are appropriate for our district to get the data and information that we feel our district can use the best?
So I don't want to speak for the state or Bach Harrison clearing. Those are great points. My understanding is that we do not have that option for the reliability of the questions and the data, because it's a statewide type of assessment. My guess is that that's probably their reasoning. I know in the past there's been some opportunity to exclude very few questions, and I don't know if we were trying to find out today from them if that's still a possibility. That may be, but my understanding is it would be very, very limited if that.
Okay, so I want to be totally transparent and honest, just like everybody else on this board. And I think exactly what Holly said. I think we need to email, mail out, and send a Sky Alert that gives parents 3 opportunities to know this exists. And then with those 3 opportunities, the opportunity to be able to go and review it before they have their child take it, because they can even, I guess it will skew it, I don't know, but then they can sit there and kind of guide them through those questions if they want them to take them, or they can just say, go take it yourself, but at least this way, when they hit to what prescriptions have you had, and they go through this whole list of prescriptions in the last month, then the parents can at least explain to them prescriptions. And when it talks about guns and their parents go shoot with them at the shooting range every week, they can explain that that's okay to do that, and it's okay to go ahead and answer it that way or not that way. And if they have guns in the home, they can explain that through with them. But I want parents to know what the survey is and to be aware of how their children are answering.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay. guess we're just kind of deciding. I know we have some guests here in the room for one of our business items. I believe Mr. Wrigley has a comment, or we could hit pause. Board, what do you think? We'll finish it. Okay.
Okay, I guess the question is do we move forward with this or not? Is that the question you're asking the board?
I'd like your guidance. I think listening to you all and understanding your concerns, I've come from a place in years past that I've been adamantly opposed to the survey. I fully understand the concerns that you've shared. I share many of those, and I, with you, believe in fierce protection of our students' privacies and their parents' right to really have transparency and understand what this is about, which I think I would not recommend going forward if we cannot provide that type of transparency. Having said that, I think we're in a different time and we're in a crisis in recent events that, at least for me, are weighing on me heavily. I really, would like to know more about what is happening with our students and some of the challenges that they face, unfortunately, as early as 6th grade. And, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow, I think, for me as a parent and for you as parents and board members yourself. But I do see the value in it. And I see the nature and the spirit of how our team utilizes that data and that information. And if beyond the funding and everything else, if this information helps us in any way shape our response to this crisis that we're in, then at least for this year, I see it being worth it. Even on an aggregate level, what our families and students are experiencing is unprecedented, unlike ever before. So I would recommend that we proceed with caution, that all of these concerns that you've raised are front and center and addressed. And if we can't move forward in that manner, then I will put a stop to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from a mental health perspective, and I've looked over this and talked to my wife, who's also a mental health expert, and looked over the assessments and stuff. Some of the questions are hard, but I think a lot of our kids, if we were to ask them, and I sometimes do, they know this stuff, they just don't talk about it. But I mean, our anxiety levels are going off the chart, our depression is going off the chart, our suicide's starting to go off the chart. We need to have a baseline and know where we're doing for we could design programs for our district. Going over this with your parent and coaching you, I think that's gonna be difficult, because the nice thing about anonymous is that nobody knows who's answering it, and you can be honest in doing it. I do have some concerns about anybody filling this long of a thing out. So it is.
Yeah, survey fatigue.
We all get the stuff on the mail that says, tell us your satisfaction survey about your last product. And you get about the third screen and you say, the heck with this. And you go on even with 100%. I think as we do move, and I would recommend we move forward on it. We need something. If we don't have this, we have to have something, because we have to have a baseline. Some of the questions are pretty hard. But again, if we take out all the easy questions, the validity is comparing against other school districts, other places across the state, you've lost that. So a lot of the value comes out of it. I agree that definitely parents need to go ahead and opt into this. I think what you're going to find is it'll skew our test when the parents opt into it, because the parents are going to take a lot of kids that don't have these issues and kick them out. And the kids that do have the issues, maybe you'll stay in. And then so we're going to see, well, we got some major problems on this and that. And you're going, well, no, it's a different population. So, I mean, really, if you're going to take this, it's good to have everybody take it, but we have the right for parents to opt in and opt out. Funding wise, it's probably okay, but I think mostly we need to have it for our own district. We need to know what's going on and how we're going to do our interventions. So though I'm not crazy about it, I think it's better than nothing. And I'm not sure what else is being done nationally.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, a few other comments, Mrs. Oaks, Mr. Millerberg, and Mrs. Nyberg.
So when I read through the survey questions this time, I looked definitely through the lenses of a parent because I have a 6th grader next year who is very innocent. And I share a lot of the similar concerns. One of the questions I do have, however, is I know as a district, one of our commitments from the very beginning is that we would do everything that is evidence-based only. And I'm curious about what kind of data has come out of the use of the survey, how effective it is, how effective it's not. I'm most especially concerned about whether or not, similar to what Mrs. Neinbauer was talking about, was whether or not it increases the anxiety of a student. So in researching the issue of suicide ideation, when we normalize that behavior, that becomes really problematic. And I've talked to various psychologists that talk about the fact that that should never be discussed with students at all on any level, unless you have someone who's qualified and really understands that issue about how to go about that discussion with them. So I'm very, I have children that have anxiety. I read through those questions and I wonder whether or not it could actually trigger that and become a larger problem and flare up something that maybe it might be an underlying issue. Again, this is why having parent consent is so critically important, but I would like to get some more information from the creators of this test and perhaps some way in from the psychological community, whether or not that's a concern, because from my perspective as a parent, it is a potential one.
Mr. Millerberg and then Mrs. Nightbauer.
I really did go all the way through all 136 questions. One question stood out that really, really bothers me. It's question 126 that asks your religious preference. I think it is in very, very poor taste that if you're not part of the Christian Judeo belief system, you don't exist. Because it asks about just three Christian religions, ask if you're Jewish or another religion or no belief. And we have students coming from all kinds of cultures. And I think it's absolutely wrong to treat them like they don't exist, even on a test like this. And my favorite question was the last one, not only because it is the last, but because it asked how honest you were in filling it out. I thought, what a great question, because I really question how many kids would be totally honest as they fill this out, thinking that somebody might track some way, somehow, the response.
Thank you, Mrs. Nightbauer.
So Miss Oaks asked for kind of what are the findings. I did get a booklet from BJ all about that has bar graphs and everything aggregated. However, it has always been an opt-in. And what I didn't see in this booklet is how many students participated. I do agree. I do think that if you have a child in 6th grade that is a happy, normally happy and mentally healthy child, if you're a parent and you read through the questions, you probably would not opt for them to do this because you don't want that exposure. You don't necessarily want to open all of this up. So that is a good question to look at. Okay, I think Mr. Millerberg talked about that. Our results skewed a little bit. The only way I think I could get behind this would not only be the 3 types of communication, but also I wouldn't want the parents to have to seek the questions. I would want that mailed and emailed out so they could read through them. I would want parents to sign not only a consent, but that they would also discuss this with their child after they came home, because maybe that would be a hard conversation for a child to start with their parent, but have the parent talk to them if there's anything that made them feel uncomfortable, just to try to discourage children from going other places. I also would only be interested if we actually did take a survey of kind of rating the child's mood and how they felt, if they were happy that day, and kind of a questionnaire. And I'm sorry to Mr. Millerberg, this is already a long survey, but I would want a pre-survey and a post-survey so we could start gathering data if this is harmful for kids to be asked some of these questions. I think that would be important too.
Is there a timeline to this test? Like,
I-
can we come back
I
and get
think
more
it's
information?
scheduled, it's usually March, April, if I remember, March. I don't know the exact date.
So we have time to come back, get some information and come back to it. Thank you.
I think the letters are scheduled to go out the end of February.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Superintendent, do you feel like you've got some direction? So
What?
what
would
I'm
you like?
hearing is that the transparency and communication with parents is really important
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
the board, and that probably some other information surrounding how the administration administers the survey, as well as some potential maybe expansion on the use
Yeah,
of this
and let me just
in
speak to
our
that a little.
schools.
I
But
think we need to be careful about, that's a kind of a psychometrician. I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of just processing that, right, Holly, how that would look and who actually would design those types of questions, especially if we're going to ask, if the district is now asking students about their moods or how they feel pre and post. Not saying that we can't. I'm just kind of trying to process what that might look like. Is that anonymous as well, or do we know who the student is? All of those things are just kind of going through my mind. So I'm not saying that it's not the right thing to do. I'm just processing. I don't know that I've ever seen that. There are exit surveys that occur, but I don't know with something like this, I've seen a pre and a post. So I definitely need to research that some.
And this may help you. It was actually, I was talking about how could we see if this was harmful to kids, and actually it was BJ's suggestion
Idea.
to do
Okay.
that. Mhm.
so I'm sorry.
Just really quick question on the back. I mean, I think it's possible that the end, after question 128, maybe come up with a question if they felt offended by this test or something that we could ask to get the idea of what the kid got in from this without doing a pre and post. It's after
Almost
and
an
all this,
exit
is this
ticket
something that
type
offended
of-
you? Is this
yeah.
something that
Okay.
felt uncomfortable taking? I think we could easily do that and just add to the end and get that information for the next time we give this test.
Okay, so yeah, and I think in the communication, just help parents understand where they can find out more information, and maybe even offer someplace they could call if they wanted to talk to
Yeah,
someone
and
about it.
I want to give you my assurance that if those things are not in place, that I'll hit the pause button and bring it back to you to ensure that that transparency level is met. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is important piece of things. So, all right, that concludes our study session items. And we are over time, but we did. Anyway, we did have a break, I was going to say, before coming in here. So I think if we're okay, let's just move immediately into our business meeting. So, oh, yes.
Do we have a call?
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. So we will begin the business meeting portion of the meeting tonight, and I'd like to welcome those of you that have joined us, and thank you for your patience. And as we're starting a little bit late. This is the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is February 2nd, 2021. And we are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. And our first item is to approve the agenda for today, February 2nd, 2021. I will entertain a motion for that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for February 2nd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Superintendent Robbins. Thank you. We'll now turn the time over to Jeff Haney, Director, and Kirsten Stewart, Associate Director of Communications, for recognitions.
Thank you, President Tingy. We appreciate the time that you grant us every single month, actually every board meeting, to recognize the achievements of students, faculty, and staff in the Canyon School District. And tonight for our recognitions, we are celebrating the achievements of champions, scholars, and top of the line educators. Those who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of recognition from the board and the superintendent. Our first honoree tonight is someone that we have mentioned several times before. He's Jackson Dart, who led the Corner Canyon Chargers to an undefeated season and the team's third consecutive state title. Jackson last week was named the 2020 Max Prep National Football Player of the Year. So congratulations to Jackson. It's a long list of accolades he's received this year. Along with earning the state title, Jackson broke the state record for touchdown passes and added 12 rushing touchdowns. He also amassed more than 6,000 yards in total offense. Now, 4 other Corner Canyon Chargers earned All-American honors. Noah Kerr was named first team All-American. Jackson Light was named second team All-American, and Cody Hagan and Harrison Taggart also earned mentioned in their divisions. So congratulations to these Chargers for continuing to earn honors even well after the football season. Our next honorees are among the top high school scholars in the country. 8 Canyons District students are candidates to become 2021 U.S. Presidential Scholars. We have 8 semifinalists in this very prestigious competition, the highest honors for some high school scholars. The program was established in 1964 to honor the country's high school scholars in academics, the arts, and CTE. And each year, up to 161 students across the country become presidential scholars, crossing our fingers that all 8 of our semifinalists become U.S. presidential scholars. Our semifinalists from Canyons District are from Alta High School, Samantha Brockman from Corner Canyon High School, Cade Crosby, Benjamin Dastrup, and Kyle Holland. From Hillcrest High School, John Baird, Ela Huang, Michael Liu, and from Jordan High School, Owen Geiger. So congratulations to those students, and we wish them well in the last stage of the competition to become U.S. Presidential Scholars. Our next honorees are among the best in the state in preparing students in careers in health and medical industries. Congratulations to Heather Starley and Matthew Hart. The Health Science Division of the UACTE, that's the Utah Association for Career and Technical Education, named Heather, who teaches at Alta High School, as the Teacher of the Year. So congratulations to Heather. And Matt, who teaches at Hillcrest, was selected as the organization's new Teacher of the Year. We noted this in last month's CSD-TU, and we also wanted to recognize them in front of the board as well. So congratulations to Heather and to Matthew. Now, we also pause tonight to note Canyons District's commitment to transparency and community engagement. Canyons District has been noted as one of the top 3 districts for website compliance of the School Land Trust program requirements. So congratulations to the many departments who contribute to this effort. It represents a tremendous amount of work and diligence on the part of principals, school community council members, and district office staff. We keep the school websites updated with information about the work of our SCCs, and not only meets compliance with regulations, it provides transparency to the school communities and the communities they serve. We've already framed our recognition in our office, and we will be putting it in our Canyons Achieves trophy case. So congratulations to all of us for the hard work that we put into making sure information about our STCs is on our website. Also, congratulations to you all. Congratulations to the members of the Board of Education. The board completed the requirements to earn the Master Board Award from the Utah School Boards Association. The award seeks to build better, more effective boards of education across the state. Now, through the training, our board focused on how to continuously improve and advocate for public education, engage the community, and build collaborative relationships, be accountable to the community and the state for student performance and high quality learning environments, and strengthen the foundation of effective governance. Now, this is the 2nd year that the Board of Education has earned its MBA, so to speak. So congratulations to the Board of Education for its hard work in becoming a master, earning the Master Board Award. Also, congratulations to our very own Amber Schill, who is serving as the USBA president. So congratulations, Mrs. Schill. This is a prestigious position among school board members, albeit one that will demand a lot of her time and attention, and as we know, her expertise. We have no doubt that you will do a phenomenal job. So congratulations, and we wish you well in your tenure as the president of USBA. Now, Canyons also has received a merit of appreciation from the U.S. Census Bureau for being a member of the U.S. Census Community Partnership and Engagement Program. Now, even with the pandemic, we did our best to encourage participation in the census. The results of the census impacts our nutrition services, our schools, our programs, special education grants, training for teachers, support for families in needs. Utah's self-response rate was the 10th highest in the nation. And the self-response rates by the cities in Canyon School District, Midvale was 69.3%, Cottonwood Heights was 80.6%, Sandy was 81.4%, and Draper was 78.4%. We engaged with our municipal partners in spreading the word to the people who live in our district, the shared constituencies, so to speak, to complete those census forms so we can be counted. This week also is National School Counseling Week, so join us in supporting our counselors. So, the counselors support our students in so many ways. If you have a moment, please check out the video on our website honoring the work of our 67 counselors who are our comforters in chief during this very uncertain time. We also wish good luck to our drill teams from Brighton Corner Canyon, Jordan Hillcrest, who are competing in the state drill semifinals today. And if they advance, the final dances will be Thursday. And President Tingy, thank you for the time once again for recognitions, and we turn the time back to you.
Thank you. And board, I'll just note that USBA mailed us our certificate with our little plaque or our year, I don't know what you call this, but it goes on the plaque that we received. So we will make sure that that gets posted.
And just so people know, we did receive the plaque. I hijacked it and I'm keeping it for myself. I will bring it to our next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, it is now time for patron comments. And I show that one patron has signed up to address the board. Just as a brief reminder of the guidelines, the board encourages engagement with the public and values input from students, parents, employees, and other patrons of the district. And the time allotment is 3 minutes for an individual and 6 minutes for someone representing a group. If the patron would like to give written documents to the board, they should present those to the secretary, Cindy over here. And the board does not engage in public comment on personnel issues of a district employee's character, professional competence, or mental or physical health. If a member of the public wants to comment on personnel issues, the board would request that those comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if the member of the public determines to verbally comment on personnel issues, his or her comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, and defamatory or slanderous comments about an individual. So we have one person that has signed up to address the board, Aniston Goodrich. Yes, at the podium, and then until press the button so that the green light comes on.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So my name's Aniston Goodrich, and I came here today to discuss like the matter of just helping some of the students among Canyon School District within like mental illnesses. And I was listening to the study session to you guys and everything. And basically it's just because I like have been talking to a lot of students among like the Canyon School District area, just like some kids throughout like different high schools even. And like, of course you have like kind of different answers, but a lot of them are the same. Basically, I understand that like there are a lot of resources that are provided for the students. It's just kind of the matter of like making them known and putting them out there for the students to hear and understand more properly. And I do understand that the Canyon School District is 6 psychologists short, like, and so some of them do like share like 2 different high schools. And so, but the high schools that do have them, a lot of the students don't even know that they are there to help them. And I've talked to a lot of students about how they, with their school counselors, they all think that they're more so focused on the academic side of things rather than their mental health side of things. And some of them haven't even talked to their counselors like at all. And if they have, it's just for CCR meeting, and it's not like a checkup, just like, hey, how are you guys? And like even like now, like with COVID, like you guys were saying, the depression and like the suicide rates have like risen drastically. And so like I really do like love the idea of like the survey and everything that you guys were like talking about. But yeah, that's basically like what I came to say.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and your experiences. And thank you for recognizing the importance of this issue with students. We appreciate you coming here and sharing that with us. And I think that you make a good point that we need to make sure students are aware of resources. Thank you. Okay. All right, we appreciate it. And I understand that.
Did you finish your thought? Or You
Are we
look,
finished?
you look like you're about midstream on a thought. You
Yes,
just-
I thought you were finished.
So I don't want to get you halfway there.
Yeah, I was just like wondering like if there was basically anything that could, like you said, like a survey, which is like awesome. And but a lot of like students, like I'm gonna be honest, won't really be like fully like honest with them if like they know that their parents are going to be seeing their answers and everything, which is like kind of like it's difficult to work with and everything. But and then with, like I said, like the counselors and everything, it's just finding a way to like make it known, because like I've tried to like talk to like some of like the administration among like some high schools, and basically they have all said to come to you guys. And I graduated, I don't, but I do understand like the importance behind it, and that like I have like a lot of friends still in high school and some like siblings in high school, and it just kind of affects everyone, not just them. And a lot of the students do feel like they're by themselves. And I just wondering like how to better project what resources the school district has to offer them.
Great, thank you. I think we have the superintendent and administrators here that have heard your suggestion and your input. So thank you. Mrs. Oaks.
And the part that nobody has explained to you before you stood up here is usually when patrons come up, we don't necessarily engage in questions with them,
Yeah.
but we take what you say under advisement. So this is not for lack of interest in what you have to say. So I just want to make that clear. I've heard your concerns from other students too. So thank you for coming.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, and I understand that we don't have anyone that signed up to call in. Okay. So that concludes our patron comments for this evening. And next on the agenda is the consent agenda items. And so I will ask for a motion. And please, in making that motion, please list each of the items that are contained on the consent agenda.
Okay, I move to approve the consent agenda. Today, item A, approval of minutes from January 19th, 2020. Item B, approval of hire and termination reports. Item C, approval of purchasing bids. Item D, approval of remote learning day on Monday, April 12th, 2021 for Edgemont and Proving Park Elementary Schools. And item E, approval of LEA specific licenses.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is new business. Item A, Midvale City Main Street CDA proposal. This is the third reading and listed as possible action. I will turn the time over to Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator, and ask him to introduce the guests that have joined us. And I think some may be joining by phone. Is that correct?
Thank you, President Tingy and members of the board. Yes, this is our third reading. We had our first reading on December 15th. Last December, where we introduced the CDA, and our second one 2 weeks ago on January 19th, and third one back tonight. Just to introduce those in the audience who may help answer any questions you have, we have Cody Hill. You can raise your hand. Cody's been here all 3 times with us. He's the RDA manager for Midvale City. Next to him is Nate Rockwood. Nate is a parent of Canyon's students. He is the director of redevelopment for Midvale City. So Nate was virtual joining us last time. We may have Randy sent. He's currently in another meeting, virtually in another meeting. So he's maybe bouncing back and forth here to us. So if you remember, Randy is our third-party consultant, spoke last time. Cindy will let me know if he buzzes in, and then we will add him, let him join in remotely. What we have, let me also tell you what it is on board docs. We have the presentation from the 15th of December, the presentation we did on the 19th, so we didn't have to go back and find those. We have the budget, overall budget and plan for Midvale City that they adopted some time ago out there. We also have, well, this presentation, which is just a couple slides, but we also have in red line form the interlocal agreement, and then a clean copy of the interlocal agreement, okay? So our purpose tonight is just to just go through the interlocal, what has changed since we met 2 weeks ago, and then get answer any questions you may have there. So again, there's just a couple slides here. I just kind of figured it was Rick who was having trouble with the remote, but yeah. So again, here is the map, the area of the CDA. It's about 117 acres there in Midville. I think we're all pretty familiar with this area. Main Street there is where they're looking to develop or redevelop. Again, this is a little different than any other RDA, CDA we've entered into, and this is an infill development, whereas the others have been basically a blank field and we've built up. You can also see there is a possibility of a proposed office building. You can see it in the red, being the northwest corner section of the area there. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Just going over the interlocal agreement there. We had Randy Sant had one of his legal counsels go through this, and he put in some clarifying language. It's nothing new I would call it nothing substantially new, but it's just clarifying language. That is in blue font, okay, in the red line, okay? So that was through his attorney. There's a section on government immunity and identification there as well that Dan went over as well. So, but that is just his update, just clarifying that language. I think the main changes would be in section 7, 8, and 9 of this interlocal. I'll just refer to the ILA. You can see what the Canyon School District cap is, okay? This isn't the cap for all the taxing entities, it's just Canyon School District cap. So, and again, let me just go down to section 8. There is going to be two budgets. One is just going to be the primary budget. That will be just the Main Street area itself. The secondary budget will include that office building that's has to be at least $60 million and the adjacent parking structure. That will be the secondary budget, okay? So the cap on the primary budget is set for Canyon School District at $8.4 million. And then if that office building comes online, that cap increases to the secondary budget of 13.8 million. And that has to trigger, or they have to begin construction basically 4 years from now. So that would be in March of 2025. This project itself has to trigger, they have to begin by a year earlier, March of 2024, okay? That's in the agreement there. Next slide, Julie. In section 9, the agency, we said they haven't had a chance to meet with the Salt Lake County yet. I actually spoke with Salt Lake County's new development director yesterday. We had a good conversation. These guys will be taking this presentation or this proposal to the county here in the next couple of weeks to get their feedback. But in that section 9, if the county's terms are less than the district's terms, meaning a 60-40 split, so if they go 50-50 or anything less than that, than what we have, or less than the 20 years, they have to bring it back to us and we can amend it, okay? If their county's terms are higher or the same, then nothing happens, it stays the same. And then the final one there is in section 10, which is, I think, a big one for us, is that the 20% for affordable housing needs to be used in that area of the CDA to benefit, those there. And of course, those are patrons of the Canyon School District and to Midville Elementary. We want to give them all the support they can. So those are the major changes, I would call them 7, 8, 9, 10 there, okay? And so we'll go to the next slide, Julie. You asked us to do just a cost benefit analysis of this office building if it comes online. This would be the secondary budget. And so and it has to meet a certain criteria, and that is it has to be worth at least $60 million in taxable value, which is a very big building that does generate a substantial amount of money there. And you can see it would generate about, if it was 60 million, it would generate 421 million. Of course, if it's more than 60 million, all the better, because it would generate more. Under this current plan, the district would keep about 168 or 3.4 million over the 20-year term there, okay? Now, if nothing happens, the office building does not come on, then we're out essentially nothing, because we're getting nothing right now, okay? After that 20-year term, we'd get the full 421,000, and then it would take to recapture that whole, if we invested 5.4, including the 20 years we're paying on, we're contributing on it, they would take another 4+ years, almost 5 years, to get up to that 5.4 million, if that makes sense, okay? That being said, if not, again, nothing happens, the office building doesn't happen, we're in the same position we are today. Thing about office buildings is they do usually bring in high-paying jobs, usually attracts families to surrounding communities. All those families certainly would not live in Canyon School District. I'm not certainly making that implication here, but a few would. I think you could safely say that. So with that is all the slides we have. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Again, this is the third reading. We put possible action if the board wanted to take action or a motion and action on this as well. So that I'll turn it back if there's anything we can add.
Okay, board, questions? Mr. Wrigley and then Mrs. Nybauer.
Appreciate that. I've done a lot of consideration on this, and I was almost playing my cards last time a little bit, continue to think. I am very strongly in support of the downtown reconstruction with their garage, their parking garage, and that. I think we need that for our district. We need that for Midville.
are now unmuted.
Well,
Okay,
thank you.
does that mean Mr. Santa's joined us? Okay, thank you.
So I'm really in agreement with that, with the primary. It looked like the primary budget was still a win-win for both Midville and it was for the district. And in many ways, it may accomplish in many of things without the other office buildings, still getting business down there, regenerating things, getting the tax base up for the whole district and moving us forward just in general. I continue to not be a strong proponent of paying for a parking garage for a separate building that is right across the street from other buildings that are being built. I think they're going to probably be over there. My recommendation would be to wait for 2025. If they can't sell it, come back and ask us for this. But I just really think that property is so close. It's just right across the street from all the other things going down. If we have a good piece of property eventually, I don't know if it'll be as big as that, but I really think that the actual reconstruction of downtown will probably bring in more revenue than that building would in general as we revitalize Midville, because it'll bring in other businesses to Midville other than that one building on the corner. So that's pretty much where I stand on that.
That is again, that is the primary. It will generate more. Again, the secondary is based on that contingency.
That's correct. I think the primary itself would be a very beneficial to Midville, and it just in revitalizing downtown, it's going to bring in other business, and that business on the corner, I think eventually it's going to be coming in. Now, whether it'll be that huge, a big building that they want to have because the parking lot, I don't know, but most of that tax revenue is not going to be, with the city. And I think the tax revenue by the increase in the value of homes, the increase of other businesses coming in the area because Midville is very attractive, would in the long run be a good investment.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Nybauer?
Yes, just a few questions. Last meeting, we had our advisor on the phone and he had talked about the timeline would be that the building would be finished by 2024. And tonight we're talking about started by 2024, but finished by 2025. Is that correct?
No. Two different things here.
Okay.
When you have a proposal like this and they start taking what they call the increment, they have to trigger it. Okay. That means they're going to start building and that means they will be taking the top off
extra income that comes in is generated by the redevelopment here. So basically, they have to have their plans in place and ready to go on the whole Main Street portion in 3 years from now. That's March 1, 2024, okay? Within 1 year after that, they have to begin construction. And we would define construction as shovels in the ground and the building going up on the office building. Now, it will take, like our high schools, it takes a couple of years to build a big 300,000 square foot building. So the building may take a couple of years to build, but they have to be underway in construction on a year after. If they're not, they'd have to come back and renegotiate, yeah, because then it's void at that point, yeah.
One other question. Thank you for the clarification. On the actual contractual agreement, I don't see the timeline, and help me, I'm sure maybe it's in there, but I don't see it in any of the articles. Is that, wouldn't that be something we'd want in the contractual agreement
Yeah, it's
in your last doc?
So it's there's a page there. It's on it's 20 years, and I'm just seeing, because where it kicks in is when they first trigger it.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't see.
Okay, it's in section 6 there. It says the first year of payment of the tax increment from the school district to the agency shall be determined by the agency, but the agency agrees to trigger the project for collection no later than March 1 of 2024. So they have to trigger it by then. This means year 1 will be no later than 2024. Each year for the first year after year 1 shall be defined as year 1 through 20. So it's 20 years once they trigger it is where it's defined.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
That's a good question, Holly.
Okay. Mrs. Oaks and then Mr. Millibird.
I just want to thank you and also thank Randy. I feel like we had a very robust conversation last board meeting on this. And I do feel like in reading through the agreement, there's some significant improvements that I really appreciate. So this is one of those examples where the back and forth, for as painful as it is, I think it's very beneficial. I really appreciate the improvement.
As I told these guys, it's the board's duty to do their due diligence. We cannot take these things lightly because there are consequences, political, short-term, long-term consequences to these. And at the end of the day, we have 34,000 kids to educate, and we need the dollars to do it. And so I applaud the board for taking their due diligence with this. This is something that needs to be vetted and examined heavily. Yes. I believe Mont.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Millibird.
Cody and Nate, I want to thank you both for your unwavering determination to come to the board and present and take hard questions and come back and take more hard questions and come back again. Thank you for that. I appreciate Randy's work representing the school district. I have gone through this and thought about it. As a practical matter, I don't like RDAs. I don't like CDAs because they take money away from the district. This is, in my opinion, a CDA that is a win-win situation. We can improve the inner city of Midvale City, improve the Main Street area, and by so doing, increase property values. And even though we are giving up some of our revenue, we will receive more revenue than we would have received had nothing happened. And so that's where I see the win-win coming in on it. And this is my community. I've got very, very fond memories of being a child. growing up on Main Street. My dad had a business on Main Street back in the 50s, a long time ago. And I would love to see this revitalization of my hometown take place. And as such, I would like to make a motion that we approve the Midvale City Main Street CDA proposal as it's been presented in the documents, to include the primary budget of $8,440,000 and the additional 5 million, whatever that is, to make it 13,808,000 with a secondary budget included.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion? And then just reminder board that if the motion is seconded, we still have opportunity to discuss the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded, and now is there any discussion to this motion? Mrs. Schill and then Mr. Wrigley.
So I just want to say that I am supportive of this, and I think it's just a great opportunity to work with the city of Midvale. And I really do hope what you have planned will come to fruition. And I do appreciate all the work done by Leon and the outside consultant. And I think the changes to the agreement are good, and I feel good about them.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley?
As I stated a few minutes ago, I think this is a great deal. I think the Midvale's worked with us and got us a really good portion of it. I just cannot support doing a parking garage for a building, which I think will be built already. So I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Other discussion to the motion?
Just
Mr.
one
Millerberg?
When we formed the district dozen plus years ago, one of the main things that we valued at that time was our relationship as a school district with the individual communities in our district. That relationship has served us well over time. And what makes a relationship like that work is the trust that we have going both directions between the school district and the city and the city and the school district. This is a real trust me deal. As you said, Leon, this is not going out and developing a field. This is truly redeveloping existing structures. And so I hope when we're all done, that level of trust has grown and increased, as will our relationship between the district and the city when it's completed.
Mrs. Nybauer?
I have a question for Mr. Wrigley because I hadn't explored the option until you just talked about it tonight. So what you're proposing, if I get this right, you're saying you would not be in favor of the parking garage because you feel that that space would, another business would easily come into that space rather than have a parking garage there because you feel like there's ample parking? Because I know earlier they talked about there's empty lots that are used for parking right now. So could you clarify what your thoughts are?
Definitely. First off, the main primary budget that the city gives unto us is for a parking garage, a smaller one for the businesses that will affect the entire area. As you see, this building's on the far north side of it, so it has no effect of any of the parking downstairs. It would basically be a parking lot to entice a builder to come in and put a large building. Now, they told us that that's a big issue because parking lots are a loser for providers, for builders. So they would need our involvement in it, but it doesn't have, other than the value to the builder and enticing that builder, it doesn't have the overall value that the primary one does, which I support, which I think would do the bigger thing. And I also think with other stuff going across the street, eventually they're going to build on that, and they'll build without our enticement of doing that.
Could I just hear maybe Leon's perspective on that? And then do we have Randy on the line?
Yes, I believe he is on the line.
Yeah, I'll give you mine. Yeah, and I'll go first and turn it over to Randy.
I think the two biggest things here. One, I'm gonna point right there. If you can see over there or right there. Right there, you can't see it, but that's our field right there. That's where Midville Elementary is. And that's where Midville Middle is, that field. You know, if you went a little bit east, so you can see their buildings. You know, that's what we're gonna be all about, is those kids in those buildings, okay? Make no doubt about it. They're our top priority. And making sure we can fund those kids is our best priority. I understand Steve's point on parking. But to build parking, to build a building, you have to be able to park it. If you don't park it, they're not going to build. And parking structures are very expensive. I hear they're around 15,000 with concrete and steel. They're around 15 to 20,000 per stall to construct. They're just extremely expensive. And so to get that developed, whoever develops that is going to have to build a parking. There's just not enough surface parking there to park a 300,000 square foot building. That's 5 stories. That, you know, that's not quite as big as the Miller building here, but you get across State Street in the workers' comp building. That's the type of building that would go on there, if it does go on at all. We got to emphasize that. So I feel like, and I think Randy said that, that's the Cadillac version of the CDA. That brings in more revenue. That makes it a bigger win for Canyon School District if that building can go in right there. And I understand Steve's concern about parking, but I would still support it because you got to be able to park that building. And that would generate us a lot of money in the future years if that goes in. That's kind of like the icing on the cake. I'm fully supportive of the road development in here. It needs to happen because, again, I-15 is a big barrier, but you're right across there is the field, is those buildings where we have approximately 1,600 kids right now that we need to support. But I do feel building that building generates the revenue. And it would be, you know, like I say, the Cadillac version of this CDA. It does get us there. And as you can see, there's just no other way just not enough acreage there to park it. So you got to build up a parking structure. I'll turn it over to Randy for his comments.
Leon, one thing that you ought to know is what you pointed at, saying that's Midville Middle, Midville Elementary. That is the Midville City Cemetery.
Oh, my word.
Because if you look where the green line is right at the bottom, that's Center Street.
Okay, I'm over here. That's right.
So the elementary and the middle school are south of Center Street.
Okay. Not too far, though.
Just,
all right.
I'm going to call it home court advantage.
Call it home court advantage. My point is still, it's the benefit, sorry, not the laser, but that's where it is. The benefit.
Yeah, you're pointing at my dad's grave. Be careful.
Yeah. I'll turn it over to Randy for his thoughts, if you're there.
Well,
and thanks for joining us too, Randy.
First of all, what I wanted to indicate is I agree with the comments that Leon has made. I think a couple of things. First of all, I think we have put a timeline on Midville City to make this happen. And to be very honest, I think that's a very aggressive timeline. But in conversations with Midville and looking at the success that Midville has already had in that office market, I think that if they can do it, if there's a city that can do it within that time frame, I think Midville would be one that could do it. When I look at projects and when I look at the economic benefit and I look at whether or not there is a but-for, what I always do is I look at the pro forma that's put together for a project, and I look at a couple of things. I want to know what the bank will lend money on and what the bank will not lend money on. And in most cases, you find that parking is considered infrastructure to a lending institution. You've got to have it if you're going to build a building. It's no different than you've got to have a water line or a sewer line, or you've got to have a road going into it. At the end of the day, the developer has to put that in his overall cost for development. And if you have a great tenant, normally they'll see an 80% loan to value ratio on their borrowing. And so you have this 20% gap. And then when I look at the gap, I try to figure out what the gap is made of. And in most cases, it ends up being either infrastructure, parking, or the cost of land. So I look at a parking structure as a requirement and a necessity to build a building just like you would a water line or sewer line. But I think in this case, we tried to protect the district in the sense that we've given Midvale City a deadline to make it happen. If they don't make it happen, then they don't get that money. But I do agree with Leon also that this really is, I think, a significant thing that could happen, because one of the things I think will happen if that office building does build, I really think that the time frame on this budget will decrease, because I think the assessed value will be higher, will create more increment, and I think you'll be able to get paid back sooner if they can pull that off, even at the higher budget. So those would be my comments about why I think that it needs to be part of it. But I also think we've tried to protect the school district by saying, okay, you got a drop dead date to make it happen. If you can't make it happen, then I think the attitude was you might be able to come back and ask, but we made it clear that if it doesn't happen, you don't get it, but that doesn't mean you can't come back. But I think our answer will be you had your chance to do it. So Midvale, if it's important to you, get out, get marketing, and find the user to build that building. And I also think it'll help be an anchor in that area too. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Anything else? Oh, I just wanted to say a couple of things. And I appreciate that there is a trigger date in there. A question and maybe a concern that I had is I hope that the primary budget project isn't stalled while they're trying to get the secondary budget in place, commitment in place. And so I hope that, but from what you said, it's going to take those few years anyway, probably to get that primary budget ready to trigger.
In our policy, it does take some time, and we do have, our policy says it does have to trigger within the 3 years, so.
Right. But I mean, as far as actually the
Yeah,
plans
yeah.
underway for Midvale.
And they do
is what
have
it sounds like.
substantial plans right now underway, yeah.
Okay, and then the other thought I had was, and thank you also for making those adjustments and modifications in the agreement. And I know why it's called a contribution from the district, but it's not money that's in our bank account right now. It's just we're delaying receipt of money. And so, I get why it's a contribution, but I also feel like by getting the 40% and the base year amount, that the district really is being held harmless. And so I support this, and I thank the city for all the work that they've done and for the great partners that they are with the district. So any other comments? Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second, so we can call for a vote. And I will do so. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to Cody, Nate, Mayor Hale for all their help, and also Randy for his assistance as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us as well.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate your advice and recommendations and the research that you've done on our behalf. Thank you, Mr. Sant. Okay, next item is item 8B, approval of Peruvian Park Elementary School construction purchasing bid. And this is action requested, and we will again call on Mr. Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Yes, thank you, President Tingy. As we said a couple of weeks ago when we did the Glacier Hills one, we always put, purchasing bids on the consent agenda. However, these big construction ones, 20-something million, we just don't feel right about that. So we separated out and still ask for your approval, but we just want to go over that with you tonight, just similar to what we did a couple weeks ago here. So next, looks like Julie may have to move that for him. So here's some information on the Peruvian Park building. It's going to look a lot like the Mid-Valley building that we just opened this past fall. Same architect designed that one. So it's a 2-story steel building, just under 93,000 square feet. Peruvian Park's a smaller site for us. It's about 10.5 acres. Again, we've been able to separate the parent and the bus drop-off. So we're going to be 126 parking stalls. You can see the number of classrooms there. Love the Panthers mascot, right? Fantastic. Next slide there. You can see how we're going to lay out this building. There's a faint red line there, dotted red line. That is the current building, okay, that dotted red line. So essentially, and then the orangish color. So essentially the new building sits right on top of the old building. So that's why, of course, we'll be moving the students out over spring break, building right on top. We are going to push it back to the north just a little bit to make it more parking in the front, which I think needs to happen. You can see the parent drop off will be in the front of the school. The buses will be coming around from the east side there, dropping off and turning back out there. So there's quite a bit of grade work at this school as well. And they'll still have our soccer field in the back. They have a brand new playground. They've got a brand new playground a couple of years ago. We will actually be fencing around that playground and keeping it right there. And then the school will have it when they come back for us. So that's, you can see the black top there for the basketball and the 4 squares games. And we're just really pleased with how this is going to turn out. We're really excited. We're excited about all our projects. And this is just one of them we're excited about. So next slide, please. You can see the first floor layout's very similar to Mid-Valley. There's a vestibule entrance there where parents have to go in and out of the office, or visitors in and out of the office to get into the building. The kindergarten rooms are along right there, 4 of them. Obviously, we'll let the principal lay out the building, how she or he sees fit, but I think first grade will be there and the upper grades up above. And cafeteria that can be split in half there as well. So again, I really like the design of the Mid-Valley one. Very, very functional. Really enjoy that one. Next slide, please. And you can see the upstairs, mainly classrooms around the corridor, some restrooms and work areas in the yellow there as well. Then next slide, Julie. This is a view of the front of the building. Again, blue with a kindergarten playground out front there. The main entrance, and then the next one, please. This will be the exit out to the playground. Excited about this area right here. A retaining wall for the kids to get down because there is quite a slope there, but it will look very nice there. Then the next view. Here's a sky view of it. You can see how it will look in that direction there. I want to say to my good friend Rick Conger, Rick grew up about 5 or 6 houses down this road right here. His mom still lives there. He went to Peruvian Park. If we have extra funds in the budget, I would like to look at putting a statue of Rick with a hard hat right in front of it. Just wishing Rick well. He underwent some minor surgery yesterday, so I'm thinking of him with a possible statue of that. Next slide there. So this is what, again, we followed the same type process. We put it out for any contractor to bid on the project. We had 5 who qualified for. These were the same 5 for that Glacier Hill qualified for Glacier Hills. So you can see their bid amounts there. It is going to be our recommendation to go with the low bid. That is Hogan Construction. They've done many projects. We went over those last time. They're doing Bright and High with us, and they will be doing Glacier Hills. We do like the fact that it's one contractor doing 2 elementary schools that are about 2.5 miles apart. So they can divide the resources as they see fit and get both schools up and ready to go in a timely frame. So we are glad that in that aspect that Hogan will be doing both of them. We do think there'll be some synergy in the schedules there with both of them. So because obviously they're not going to want to finish one and not the other. They're going to want them both for their company's sake to both go up at the same time. Next slide. Here's our total budget. You can see you've already approved the architects. There's the Hogan construction. We'd like to have, again, a 4% contingency. That's just not for rec statute, but for things of landscaping and millwork and HVAC. And of course, the furniture we'll order at a later date, probably about a year from now. Construction will begin essentially over spring break. Once the kids move out, we will be moving on site to knock down to abate and knock down the old building and get going there. Looking to complete that at the same time, July of 2022 for the start of that school year. So next slide. I just also want to mention, we made very good progress getting the Crescent View building ready. I think we got all the classrooms cleaned out and ready, carpets all shampooed and everything to move in for those students in a couple months. The board did mention a couple meetings ago when we brought a small cap about the playground. We have decided not to move a playground down there for the Crescent View, for the Edgemont Improving Park kids for 1 year. We're going to be drawing some lines and getting some temporary type play areas for the kids. We know it's important that they do have a place to play. So, but we will not actually be relocating a playground down there. We may hear we may get feedback on that from some parents, but based on the feedback we got, we decided not to go with that route, just to let you know there. So with that, there's a possible motion, or I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
I have a question on that playground. I think there was some discussion about using the neighboring
Yeah, we'll look at the
Parker
park.
Elementary School. Is that a viable option?
The principals were, and we want them to be in charge because it is they're the ones who supervise it. They're a little bit nervous about it being that it's really close, yet it's not, still a little bit of ways. And so they're concerned about that. We said we'd support them with aids, or if one-time aids money if they needed it, but they're just a little concerned. They feel better about this option of getting some 4 squares and some other type activities. I know we're going to buy some. They sent me a picture of it yesterday, and I can't remember, some little play area where kids can go in and throw balls around too. That's actually looks pretty fun. One of those for each school. So we're going to have some other stuff there, but we are certainly open to that. But we wanted the principals to make sure they felt good about that as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, some questions?
Holly has a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mrs. Nybauer and then Mr. Millerberg.
Thank you. How many students are at Peruvian Elementary?
About 550.
And do we anticipate, as far as projected growth, that it will increase?
Peruvian's a built-out area, but it has the SALTA program, very popular program with us. So we feel like it will be in that 550 to, I don't think they'll ever get quite to 600. This building is built for about 750 if we needed it, but if we ever needed other programs there, but we don't see it going that high.
It looks to be similar in square feet to Glacier Hills.
Glacier Hills is about 1,800 square feet, but overall, pretty good size.
And then there's a slide, there's a green space in the second floor.
Yeah, if you
I
want to go
just was
back,
wondering I had a hard time telling what that was.
get back a couple
That
more.
was a courtyard or playground
more.
or?
Couple more. Keep going, yeah, keep going. Keep right there. So what that is that's the cafeteria there. Okay, so that goes up to the top of the building. So kids can walk along and see that, but so there's no, that goes all the way to the roof, if you will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Millerberg?
I'm really excited to see the rebuild of Peruvia get started. As we march through some of our older schools and, call it what it is, some of our schools that are less safe than our newer construction, I'm excited to see that happen. And it's very, very similar to Mid-Valley. And if people on the board have not had a chance to walk through Mid-Valley, I would suggest you do. We've joked about it a little bit, that it was a COVID-ready school. You'll notice that the classrooms are around the perimeter. And so every class has natural lighting. It also makes it so as the kids entered in the morning, they all go one direction to their classroom. As they exit, they all go the other. So you don't have kids crossing back and forth as much. Excellent design. Very happy for that. Leon, refresh my memory, and I just want to know how much inflation has cost us compared to the 20,865,000 plus the 835 contingency. What did it cost us to build Mid-Valley?
So if you could go up a couple slides. Oops, the other way, sorry, back. Mid-Valley was 21.8 million, if memory serves me correct.
Is that including the contingency? Or is that what we
That
actually
includes
spent
the contingency.
with furniture? Or
So
not furniture?
it's actually less. This is actually less than Mid-Valley.
And why is that?
The reason it is less is, I think, this demand. I think, well, I mean, two points. One is the playground. Okay, Mid-Valley playground's very expensive. Mid-Valley's are about 600,000. Okay, that one's Peruvian Park stays. So if you take out the playground, you're almost
about even.
You're almost even.
Thank you.
Mr. Wrigley and then Mrs. Oates.
I'm excited about putting this in. We've seen the value of putting these schools in some of the older neighborhoods. It sort of regenerates new growth in there and brings in the young couples back again, that we can get that growth into our district. And so I think this is going to be a great thing for the community. I know the community is really excited about it. I've attended a couple of meetings with you, and they're all excited to move forward with it. And as Mont said, this is one of the last few buildings that is really not earthquake very safe. Yeah, it's So I'm glad we're getting it out early, within the month or so. So I'm just looking forward to this. I think it'll regenerate that whole area, the county area, that little county island and Sandy Island right there.
Mrs. Oates.
I'm guessing that part of why we're able to save a little bit on the construction is because Hogan is going to have two projects so close to each other. Is there any
Yeah, I think
part of that
there's-
that's playing into it?
I think there's a couple reasons. One is, I think Hogan saw that they wanted both because they were right there.
Mhm.
I think there's just not a whole lot. There's a lot of construction still going on even with COVID, right? We hear all these, mainly these downtown skyscrapers, apartment buildings, right? And so that's taken a lot of the workforce out there, is those, but there's not a whole lot of school building construction going. And so that does help. Yeah.
That's interesting. So
There's a couple school districts didn't have bonds passed a year ago, and several others delayed bonds because of COVID issues last November. So there's not a whole lot of that happening.
Well, I want to commend you for your work that you've done on this. I think it looks great. I'm so excited for this community. Just by way of perspective in terms of how likely we are to fill this school, I recently spoke with a realtor from our community that said that currently in the Salt Lake Valley, there are about 2,000 homes for sale, yet 20,000 potential buyers. So I don't think the demand is going to go away anytime soon. So I am really excited for this. I think it will be wonderful.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
The last one.
I'll make a motion.
So,
I'll make a motion.
okay, yeah, this is an item that is action requested. So a motion is in order.
I make a motion to approve the awarding construction contract for Proving Park Elementary to Hogan and Associates Contractors in an amount not to exceed $20,865,000. Also approve a district-controlled contingency amount of $835,000.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and our facilities team. This is an exciting time for that community. I know they've been waiting and looking forward to this. So, okay, board, that concludes our new business for this evening. And we will now have staff comments. We'll turn time over to Superintendent Robbins and then back to Business Administrator Leon Wilcox.
Thank you, President. Real quick update on COVID response and vaccination clinic. If you noticed today, all of our schools are back in-person instruction. Test to stay protocol is expired, so we'll be Alta and Jordan will be reset to 0. Draper Park is also back. Really, right now, 2 schools that are kind of on the radar. Corner Canyon, I believe, is at 18 cases today, and Indian Hills Middle has been at 15. However, they have, I believe, 6 or 7 cases, positive cases coming off in the next couple of days. And I think only 4 or 5 in the last 7. So their trend line is in a positive direction, and one that would, indicate that we can keep them open. Vaccination clinic on Thursday, you might have seen we got an additional 200 plus originally and another 800. So we're over 1,000 vaccines for this Thursday. It drops our age threshold, I believe, to 23, Jeff. So we're getting close to getting that first vaccination for all employees that indicated they would like one. After Thursday, I believe we're down to less than 400 that have not received their first vaccination. So that's really great news. Also along those lines, the county, as mentioned, I think through communication, you might be aware the county has indicated that we will have second round doses available for February 11th. So that's going to be an interesting day because we'll have the second round of vaccinations beginning. Plus, if the trend continues with the 480 or more first vaccinations, you can see the numbers for that day will be enhanced. So it's likely that we'll be running 2 sites, one here at the district office and one at Mount Jordan. We're pretty locked in with community nursing services from 4 to 8 because they're distributing their nurses out to different sites. So we'll try to manage that in 2 different places. And I just, again, want to share my gratitude to our HR department. Steve Diamond and his team have just been amazing. Jeff Murray in technology as well. I really believe if and hopefully there's not, but if there's another pandemic, the software protocols that Jeff has developed could be very valuable to the next pandemic. Pretty amazing what he's been able to accomplish, but we want to really encourage those. I believe it's going to go out sooner if it hasn't on second vaccinations. If you are scheduled for a second vaccination on February 11th, we really want to encourage all of you to make sure that you take advantage of that. Not that there won't be a vaccine available, but that's when that has been assigned and allocated. So if at all you can make it on the 11th, we would encourage you to take that appointment to get that second vaccine. So anyway, with that, also, I think either this week or next week's National Counselors Week. So I just want to give a shout out to all of our counselors in the district. They're they're on the front lines every day, working with our students, and, the care and services they provide, it goes without saying how valuable they are to the district. So want to tell them thank you and wish them the best. So with that, Leon.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo what Rick says. Jeff Murray is I've never met a programmer like Jeff. He came from, I'll say it, Jordan School District 12 years ago. We got him here, and we've been ever so grateful. All we have to do is we just throw in a 6-pack of Diet Coke every morning to Jeff and let him go. And he does amazing work. We're lucky to have him. Thank you. Just one thing I want to bring the board's attention to. We received, there have been some news articles and whatnot. We received a second round of ESSER 2 money. I call it CARES Part 2 in my vocabulary. The district is going to receive about $9.7 million, which is a substantial amount of money. In the legislature, in Senate Bill 1 that has just gone through, the federal government allowed for quite an array of things, but the legislature has pretty much asked school district to use this on solely for learning loss. And that was our main initiative as well. It can also be used for some PPE type equipment, which we will use as well. They have asked not that it don't be used for any HVAC upgrades. We're not going to be using that. We're still going to purchase the MERV 13 filters, but that's not a HVAC system upgrade. Our systems are in very good shape, and I think it has showed throughout the year with the air movement we've been able to generate in our buildings, especially our newer buildings. So, but I wanted to make the board aware of that they have also pulled out, the legislature did pull out technology, mental health supports, and professional development out of that as well. That was in the original allocation from the federal government. So there's a chance they could be added back in at the end of the session. We'll see. We hope they are, because we have some needs in those 3 areas. But right now we are grateful for that 9.7, and it is our initiative to make sure we get our students caught back up to where they need to be. And we know with our fantastic teachers, that's going to happen. And finally, I just want to get well wishes to, 2 of my good friends, BJ and Rick Conger. Both of them had surgery or an accident this past weekend. So I hope they take their time, but get back to us soon. Certainly appreciate all their efforts. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board, now it's time if you have comments or would like to report on any committee work that you might have to report on. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll start with Mrs. Arnold.
So I have no committee report to report this week. However, Leon did give me an assignment to do 3 classes on the audit committee. So just so you know, next year when you want your audit committee, now you have 3 assignments just right off the bat. I don't know if there's a quiz to that or not. I'm hoping not. And I just want to say thank you to the whole district for all the things that they do.
Thank you. Mrs. Nybauer?
Yes, report on committee work. This week, I met with the preliminary working group with the Point Committee. We had a really great discussion, really excited about all of the ideas and inspiration that we can kind of look at, knowing that this is all very preliminary, but exciting to talk about what the possibilities are. Met with the policy group, which was really, actually, I really enjoyed that. That was great as well. I met with BJ Weller, and I actually want to echo what Leon said. I do want to wish him well and hope that he has a speedy recovery. I appreciate it. Actually, Leon spent some time with me as well, just looking at the map, and I've got the long-term planning committee coming, I guess maybe next month. So I appreciate the time he took and his breadth of knowledge was great. I wanted to just extend a thank you. I meant to do this last meeting to Nancy, and for the amount of time she's taken to mentor me means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. She's definitely gone above and beyond as our board president to help me along as a new member. I'm also grateful to Steve. He's also been great. Loaned me a book with all of his highlighted passages, which is great, so that I can look at a glance and learn. I appreciate that. Just finally, I just wanted to thank all those that I've met with. Again, I'm just very impressed with Superintendent Robbins and all of those that I've met with to discuss the different committee work and different things in the future, and just everyone's breadth of knowledge on different situations, as well as just such a great working environment. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley.
Yes, I'll report back. I attended 2 committee meetings. The first one was the point one. And really quickly, as we started brainstorming for the point one, I realized that it's not just the point, it's the entire district. So as we start looking at that, we're going to be taking a look at how do we want this 21st century district to look, and the point be part of that. So I'm excited to see that. It's going to be spearheading a whole bunch of stuff with us. I also had a chance to sit on the policy committee meeting, and we went over the hundreds of policies that we've done over the last couple of years. Amazing the number of policies we've went through. We got a couple still left. I think we had one from 1988 from Jordan School District. But I think we pretty much gone through that, and I think we got some good solid policies. I'm feeling good about that. And then the last thing, I had an opportunity today to go to Corner Canyon and see their play Matilda. I'm not so sure I'm excited about the play, but I sure love the kids. And I also loved it that this play gave the opportunity for about 20 kids to star. I've never seen a play with so many stars on it. But as I sat there at the very end, I was just filled with gratitude. It's like, this is normal. And I'm going, I haven't felt normal for a long time. You know, I haven't gone to a play for a long time. That really, so I really appreciated that. I think it's going to be my gratitude journal tonight, just really appreciate it. So I thank the Corner Canyons for that. But you just see the kids as they came in the door, they said, thank you for allowing us to do this. As they personally walked me down to the seat, and the teacher and everything, they were just so grateful for the opportunity to be able to perform. Reminds me of high school.
Thank you. Mrs. Oakes?
Thank you. So I want to echo what Stephen and Holly said with regard to the point working group discussion. I am so excited about the idea of being able to take a 50,000-foot view and plan where we're going from here. And as we talked about, of course, there's so many things that the main working group that's been assigned for that site are working on. It's a developing situation. There's so many unknowns, and there's nothing that we as a district can decidedly say is going to absolutely happen. But I do think no matter what happens, it's an incredibly important stage for the district to start planning what we want to be and how we want to anticipate where growth and change is going to happen in education and what we want to do about it. So for those other board members that would be interested in knowing a little bit more about what we discussed, I put together a Google Drive file, and you're more than welcome to, if you want an invitation to that, I can send that to you and you can take a look, because we are going to have a discussion in next week's roundtable where we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these principles and how it relates to where we're headed and what we'd like to see as a group. And follow up to that, I did that same day get to participate in the Point Master Plan meeting, and that has been recorded and is available to the public if anyone is interested in watching what took place. What happened was we essentially had all of the various committees on the call. There were a lot of tiny faces in that Zoom call, but Alan Matheson ran the group, and he introduced to us the design firm that will be overseeing the entire project. And I have to tell you, I got so excited about the possibilities of what's awaiting our community at large. It's going to be incredible. The group that they chose specifically really believes in the importance of maintaining the natural beauty and the ecology of the area. And so they're going to have trails that go from the river to the ridge with views of the mountains on both sides, and yet with incredible opportunities for growth in that central area of the valley. And we are so lucky to be close to it. It's going to be amazing. I got to attend board leadership planning meeting. That was good. I have a whole new appreciation for everything you guys have done the last 2 years and in keeping things on time. And tonight's a great exception. And I also got to attend JLC for a couple different weeks. And Amber, I want to echo my thanks for what you do for the USVA and the importance of that group. I really appreciate all of those people and how hard they work to come together and to make a difference. And that has been a wonderful process for the last couple of years. And I just want to close with similar sentiments to Steve. I know in the fall, when we had very high numbers at Corner Canyon, we had a lovely New York Times article that addressed our district and the high numbers we had at that high school. And kind of a question of whether or not it was responsible for us to stay open and whatnot. And Jeff worked like a dog to keep up with that reporter's questions. And he was very patient and very kind. And I had to laugh, but also cry. About a week and a half ago when the New York Times did an about face on that issue and printed an article about Clark County, Nevada, and how there have been 18 suicides in the last year there. And the superintendent will be opening schools in part because of that. And the article didn't just talk about Nevada, it talked about suicides across the country that were related to COVID isolation. From the very beginning of when all of the shutdown happened, that's been my number one concern. And I've been following very, very closely what other states have been doing and the challenges that they've had. And I have to say, I am so grateful to every person on this board who has fought to try and keep kids in school as much as possible. I have family members in some of these other states that will send me articles and talk to me about how badly their kids are struggling. And at the same time, I have parents, like you mentioned, Steve, who come to me and thank me for the fact that their kids can perform in a musical, or they can have just a little bit semblance of normalcy. And for every kid that has an experience like that, whether it's sports or music or student government, they get to see each other, they get to talk and have conversations. That's another triumph, every kid. So I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank our administration. I want to thank Rick, who took an unbelievable amount of heat in the fall and was at the tip of the spear on an issue that was so divisive. I have never read that many emails in my life and never had them so split, but I feel like we did the right thing. So thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill.
Okay, so I want to start with talking about yesterday. We went on some of the administration, and Nancy and I went on a tour of the new Brighton High School. And Steve, oh yeah, sorry, Steve, you were there. There are a lot of people there. Okay, Steve, Nancy, and I, along with a lot of others, went and toured Brighton High School, and it was just amazing to see the school and just to know all the time that Nancy and I spent meeting with architects every week and coming up with, well, we didn't come up with the plans, but we saw all the plans. And then to actually be able to walk through those spaces now and just see how they're coming together, it was really incredible. And I am so excited for my community, and it's going to be an exciting day when we can hopefully have the ribbon cutting, possibly in person, probably outside. Anyway, it's beautiful. And I just want to thank everyone who has worked on that project. It's really coming together, and I hope you guys will all come see it one day. I also want to just talk about the legislative process. I've been involved with that a lot. And I just want to let you board members and also the public know that even though this is an unusual year, it's actually really easy to participate. You just, go to that legislative website and you can click on the calendar, click on what meetings are happening. Then you can also just join the webinar. And from there, you can raise your hand and hopefully they'll call on you. Or you can sign up to speak ahead of time if you want. But anyway, it's really in some ways possibly easier to join, because you can be at home listening and then just join. And before you could listen to it, but now it's in a webinar. You can kind of see them there. You can follow the PowerPoints. You can actually read the PowerPoints instead of them being super tiny. Anyway, so I just want to encourage you, if you're interested at all, to go ahead and look that up. I also just want to tell Charlie and Susan and Delaney, thank you. I know they're just working really hard, as they always do during the session, and I really appreciate them and all they do. I'd like to wish BJ and Rick just hopefully quick recovery, and they are key people to the district, and we are really going to miss them. I just want to kind of add to what Amanda said there at the end. I mean, I really, thinking back on this year and what we went through all together, I mean, it was really hard, probably one of the hardest things we've done as a board. And I just want to thank each of you and just say how I am really proud of the decisions we made. And I'm also just really proud of our district and how we made the decisions, but you guys out there did all the work, and we really do appreciate you doing that. And it's huge. I mean, to think what we accomplished and how our schools really have mostly been open is incredible. Because around the whole US, there's states that aren't even open. And that's really hard on kids, just like Amanda was saying. So anyway, thank you, everyone. I'm really proud. I wish New York Times would come back and do an article, but probably not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Millerberg.
It's kind of exciting and really kind of unusual to sit here and look down and see all 7 board members sitting at the table. For the last year, I would say, from March till now, we've probably been at 50%, maybe 4 board members here, 3 gone, a lot of the time. So it's good to see that things are semi-normal and that we're getting back. I really do apologize about not bringing the plaque for the MBA award, but I mean, it's so important to me. I didn't bring it. I mean, what can I say? But I do believe that there was a 4 on it, which means we've accomplished that now for 4 years. That's a lot of work. And I appreciate board members saying, I want to be better. I want to work to see what we can do. And on that, maybe it's not appropriate, but that never bothered me. I just wanted to call out Chad by name. Chad knew he wasn't going to run again. It would have been very, very easy to just blow it off. And I do appreciate him staying with it and getting it done and making sure that we did accomplish receiving the award again. I'm not sure who came up with the idea of Test to Stay. Oh my gosh, what a great idea. We can keep our schools open and not have the yo-yo of they're working, they're not, they're working, they're not. They're in school, they're out of school, and we can keep our kids in school. It will give us an increase in social emotional wellness with our students. And as I think we've all learned in the last year, there is no substitute for a teacher in a classroom and face-to-face instruction. Bless everybody that's done the remote learning. Good for them, good for those that have put it in place. there's no substitute for a teacher face-to-face in a classroom. It was really fun for me tonight to listen to the principals talk about graduation. Oh my gosh, it's only a few months away. And what a panic it was a year ago. And how they're just rolling with it and they've got a plan and it's going to work and we'll be okay. I guess the only way I can really say it is we are very, very fortunate that we are surrounded by a bunch, and I mean a bunch, a huge group of really, really good, dedicated people. Whether they're educators in the classroom, whether they're administrators, whether they do your payroll or whether they do whatever, we are just so fortunate to have really good people to work with. As I look back over the last dozen years and I see where we were, I often think about the night we were over in the bus barn. Jordan School District would not let us touch the buses till after midnight, and we were there at 12:01 putting Canyon stickers on the side of the bus. And what we, all of us together, have been able to accomplish, and where we are and how much good we've done, and what a great machine we have working, and how much we have left to accomplish still. It's just been a great source of enjoyment to me to be a part of it. And so I'm glad I'm here. I'm also excited that we're going to get out before 11 o'clock tonight. I promise I won't keep you till after 9:30, okay? Nancy, it's yours.
Oh, thank you. And thank you all. I appreciate all the great work and the recognitions that have been expressed. So I don't have much to add, but I do want to I'll echo what has been said, and please just know that my appreciation is really deep and along the same lines that has been expressed. For my fellow board members, I appreciate all the great work and the committees, the committee work, and to the superintendent and the administration and Leon for all the great work. And, you know, it's no small thing to do a small thing in this district. Everything takes a lot of work by a lot of people that are very dedicated. And I just am so grateful. And I too was able to tour Brighton and attend the play at Corner Canyon, and I celebrate our counselors and the policy committee work. And Clarine, thank you for bringing up the training for the audit committee. I believe one of those 3 assignments was given to all of us, even if we're not on the audit committee. So I'll just remind my fellow board members to do that. And so if there's nothing else, then we will adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for your time and for being with us.